Okay. Rabbi Yisroel Rosenberg of the Techeiles Chabura is going to be giving a shiur on Techeiles, and there will be questions fielded after.
Shalom Bracha, everyone. We'll be giving now a shiur on the topic of Techeiles. There's a Chashav Rav in Yisroel, Rabbi Shraga Kallus. I'll just read up a little bit what I found about on him. Rabbi Kallus is thought after speaker in many yeshivas and seminaries. In addition to giving a shiur on Aderes HaTorah every Friday, Rabbi Kallus is a Rabbi in Yeshivas HaTorah Or in Beis Yisrael and serves as a Rosh Kol of the second Seder Kol for Halacha that boasts 150 members. His dynamic, engaging style and sharp wit have the Bachar relating to halacha in a very real way. Rabbi Kallus is the author of Wine, Whiskey, and Halacha of the Laws of Yichud. Rabbi Kallus has given over 14,000 shurim over the past 10 plus years and released 3 books and a lot of more chashuv things. Rabbi Kallus is a well-known lecturer in many, many places. So Rabbi Kallus gave a shiur against the Techeiles, which many, many people started to wear. So I would like to discuss different topics, different things he discussed, and B'ezras Hashem get a clarification on what the people that do wear on this, what do they hold on this topic. Today is the Shiva Asa B'Tamuz, it's a fast day. The Rambam writes, there's an interesting introduction. The Rambam writes that the whole reason why the Eibishter made the Chorban Beis Hamikdash and sent us in Kallus is why if we're going to leave go of the Torah and we're going to be Isaac in all the Hevlei Hazman, the Rebbeinu is going to take away all the good things we have. If we don't use it for the right way of Torah, he's going to take it away from us. Because the Gashmias helped us not do the right things, so he's going to take it away from us, and that's going to cause us not to be able to do the Torah mitzvahs in Kallus. It may be aleim kol harois hamoinen oisam eliknes olam haba. Rambam says that the tachlis of Kallus is a einish for not keeping the mitzvahs, so we can't do the mitzvahs. It's interesting, all in the Darius Klal Yisrael weren't able to do many mitzvahs. They weren't able to do Dalminim, they weren't able to sleep in the sick of hundreds of years for the cold, and the Sefer Torah in the times of the Goinim and the Rishonim were, many of them weren't kosher. Many mitzvahs. Moshe writes that most of the places in Kallus we didn't have wine. The list goes on and on of mitzvahs, though even mitzvahs are tluyas, not tluyas v'aretz. Mitzvahs are kafta the gavra we weren't able to do because that is einish of Kallus. In today's days, the Eibishter gave us the opportunity to do many more mitzvahs. The question is why? What do we deserve that we have the opportunity to do mitzvahs that Kallus and Kallus weren't able to do? So I heard an interesting word. The Rambam writes, the Chachamim and Nevi'im are only interested in Yemosei Mashiach, not to be shayot on the Umas Ha'olam. The Kallus should be able to do. The reason why we hope for Mashiach that we should have time to learn Torah and we do the mitzvahs, and no one should stop us from that. In order to be able to the opposite from Kallus, that's the Yemosei Mashiach, and give us the opportunity to do Torah and mitzvahs. So someone said that the Eibishter is giving us now. He wants to see Taka if we can take the opportunity, use the opportunity of the mitzvahs that we have now to be koine chayil elam haba. That's what he's giving us to Nisai now before Mashiach. He wants to see if we're going to use it now, like that he'll give it to us fully. So let's see if Taka, the Eibishter, is giving us the opportunity to do the mitzvah from Techeiles, maybe not. This is the discussion we'll be speaking about. There's 3 reasons that I want to give this shiur. I'm not a Maggid shiur. I'm not anyone that's really right for this. But I think I have learned this subject for many, many years. So I think there's 3 good reasons I should give this share. The Rav is a Chashuv Rav, like we spoke about before, and this shir I've seen it at any time. Already over 1,000 people have seen it. A couple of people sent it to me to ask me what I have to say about it. That itself is a reason to clarify what the position of those that don't hold of Techeiles. What do they hold? The Rav gave his shir very geschmack shir. The Olam, he makes it. One of the reasons why the Olam likes the Rav, Rabbi Kallus, is because he's very personal. He's very geschmack. He makes jokes, and the Olam stays fresh. And this year, the Rav from beginning to end is being mezalzel, is joking all about those people that wear Techeiles, and he's being misleitzes from beginning to end. I don't know if he probably didn't mean it, but that's the way it's observed by anyone that's listening. Comes out to feel that these people are just coming from space and they don't know what they're doing, and it's one big joke. I think we have thousands of Talmidei Chachamim, many Chashuv Rabbanim that are wearing Techeiles. I think that itself is a reason to respond and explain their position. But the most important part, for me at least, is to put forward things which are usually not discussed by people all the people that come out against Techeiles. They leave out very, very crucial information. Basically, the Hagdama to the Shir is always left out. And I would like to give that Hagdama. And like that, hopefully we'll see some clarification. This is Hagdama for Techeiles, even those that hold Techeiles or those that are against Techeiles. This is the Hagdama that should be given every time we discuss Shirim. This is the basics, black and white ideas that everyone should know before learning the sugya of Techeiles. It's clear from the Shiur that the Rav's information, the people who gave the Rav information, misled him. It's not even a question. From the beginning to the end, I'm not sure. The Rav said he sat down 5 hours with people that try to convince him it is Techeiles. Even those people must have not given him the right information, as we'll see along the whole Shiur. This is one of the reasons why many Rabbanim don't want to put themselves in the Shiur, is because there are many people that don't give over the information the right way, and they're not confident that they will be getting the right information, so they don't want to put themselves in the subject, which is a complicated subject. Okay, now in the whole Shiur, every Shiur someone gives there's two aspects to the Shiur. There's the overall feeling when someone comes away from the Shiur, and then there's the actual details of the Shiur. Every Shiur, there's 2 people that, and you come to the Shiur, there's two points for the Shiur. The people that are being Isaac in the sugya, they're learning the sugya. For them, the details are very important. Most people are usually don't know the details of the Shiur. For them, when they come away from the Shiur, they usually come away with the overall feeling we get from the Shiur, which doesn't have to be there. Forget the details. Rashi says on the Gemara, Agri Kalo Doifka, that when Kallus came together in times of the Gemara to listen to the Shiur, thousands of people, the main schar was what they used to come together and squished. And Rashi explains because the details of the Shiur usually get forgotten, so they don't have schar in that. But it's more what they they squish together and they matriach themselves to listen to the Shiur. That's the main schar they got. So that's what we're saying. There's 2 things. There's the details, which most people don't know. Then there's the ruach, the overall of the Shiur. In the Rav Shiur, these 2 details are very clear. The ruach from the Shiur is that First we'll discuss the Ruach of the Shiur, then we'll discuss the details. The Ruach of the Shiur is that the people that are wearing Techeiles are not choshesh for what the Gedolei Yisroel say. Of course, you'll always find one or two Gedolim that hold what they're saying, one or two Rabbanim that hold what they're saying, but the masses, the Rabbanim are, the popular understanding is the Rabbanim are against it. And these people that are putting it on are going, doing things, that's number one. Number two is that they're doing something which is against the Messiah. Two parts to the Messiah. One, the Rav puts down that we know the Messiah is that Techeiles is Nignas. We don't have Techeiles anymore. How could you put it on? The Rav actually said, even if you would prove me that you have the right Techeiles, and I'm convinced, still the Messiah is that it's Nignas. That was one Messiah the Rav said. We have another Messiah the Rav said. We know all our Rabbeim, all the Doris taught us that the Kallus is a fish. Now people are coming to say it's a snail. New York's chocolate is somehow a snail. No. These people are against the Messiah. Against the Gedolim and against the Messiah. Not only that, they're against all the Rishonim. How about that? There are 17 Rishonim, at least 17 Rishonim, minimum 17 Rishonim, that it doesn't stem, it's against 17 Rishonim. And the Rav is very clear, very strong, that even in some of the things they try to push in and make it work. But most of the Rishonim, they agree that it doesn't work out. But they say that if the Rishonim would have known what the Kallus is New York's chocolate, then they would say different. And this the Rav gets very upset, and he says, and obviously all those people that agree that are saying against the Rishonim, they are lachamerim. Rav is very clear on that. And that's what the Rav says. The agreement is of all those that hold of Techeiles overall agree that they're saying things is against the Rishonim, but the Rishonim wasn't zeicher to know the Chalazon, that it's a snail, so that's why they got it wrong. So overall, someone comes away from the Shiur, he gets the details. The people that are wearing Techeiles today are against the Gedolim, against the Messiah, and against the Rishonim. Yeah, they might have some archaeological finding, but that's not us Jews, we don't go with that. Basically, the people that are wearing Techeiles today are in a serious situation. Let's keep away from them. He didn't say that, but obviously, if that is what they hold, then the outcome is obvious. So, okay, so I would like to make a few points. The Rav stated that the whole Techeiles started with Dr. Zeiderman. I was there to speak to him today. He was nice of him to call me up. We had a nice discussion. Just to point out a few facts, the Techeiles really started with a Yid. His name is Rabbi Yisroel Tevger. Today's a Ma'aretz Torah. I was there to sit with him once. He's a Talmid Chacham, a Yer Shamayim, a tzniusdige person. It's a Pella. That's the person that brought up the Sugya from Techeiles has never shown his face in public, almost very rarely shown his face in public. He's mamish a person which when I was speaking to him and I sat with him, it sounded like I had to pull out the words from his mouth. Very tzniusdige person. The way it started was the Rabbi Yisroel Tevger, who today is Isaac in the Batzah Torah. He was learning in the Old City, and he learning Hilchos Tzitzis. This part wasn't as far as I understand. And he took it a little further and went into the Lamaisa about Techeiles and did his research. Now, there's a sefer called Shmuel B'Doiroi from Rabbi Shmuel Orbach. Over there, he brings down the details because Rabbi Tevger, in the beginning of when he did his research, he didn't publicize it before he spoke to a Gadol Yisroel, Rabbi Shmuel Orbach Tzal. The way they break it down over here is that Rabbi Tevger learned the sugya, the mitzias and the halachas, and he wrote a maimer. B'chinas chadashas being Techeiles, and he came to Rabbi Shmuel Orbach to discuss it. So Shmuel Orbach told him he should be mefarsim it between the loimdim. The Shmuel Orbach himself, a few times he called up Rabbi Yosef Buxbaum, the Rosh Mechai in Shalayim, in order to get his maimer in the Maria, the Kavitz Maria. Rabbi Shmuel Orbach himself said he doesn't want to get into it. He doesn't have time. He's very, very busy with his yeshiva. And he's not masugel to go through details. He held that anyone that's not masugel to go through it, he's not mechuyev, and he can be samech on the gedolim that are not wearing it. He writes over there in this book that Rabbi Shmuel Orbach says he doesn't understand what the whole problem, what's the whole issue over here. The Gemara says it's not worse than Lavan. So there shouldn't be any problem with the whole. If it is, it is. If it's not, it's not. One time, Rabbi Tevger asked him for a haskama hamlatza, not a haskama hamlatza. Pasha, he wants to go to the gedolim to speak to them. They shouldn't think there is meshuga. And so Shmuel Orbach persuaded him he should not go. He should not go. He laughed and he says he's not going to give this letter. First of all, you have no chiyuv to go between the Gedol and Yisroel. All you should do is farsim it, and then whatever happens. It's not up to you. And the second thing is, if you go to Gedol Yisroel, nothing's gonna come out of it. So there's no tachlis. And he said, if you're for sure, if you're 100% that it's it, you're mechuyev to wear it. Because that's how, just to set the record straight, that's how the Techeiles sugya started. The hamlotzes and with the Shmuel Orbach pushing him to farsim and encouraging him very strongly on the whole topic. Really, it's not negay who, doesn't make a difference who it is, who has started it. You know, the Mishnah says that the Tanoim were shteldavek halachas based on two weavers over there. It's not negay who the person is. Depends what's being said, doesn't make a difference who's saying it. Okay, what do I want from this? What I want from this is that this started in the over 30 years ago. Since then, the sugya developed. We have a whole sugya, Sfarim and Pansfarim, that talk about what exactly the details of the sugya. And Panim Chadash Balakan. Anyone, it's impossible. It's incorrect to go back to information that was around 30 years ago after tens and hundreds and thousands of Talmidei Chachamim went through the sugya. And the sugya today is a different sugya. Of course, the details and a lot of the details of Rabbi Tevger and his maimer, the basics could be still around, but there's a whole new panim, and that's the sugya today's days. What I mean to say is, in today's days, we have Gedolei HaPoskim. I actually myself have only gone through a little bit of Rabbi Tevger's work. I've only been siachis to all what was said in the last 10, 15 years. Of course, it's irrelevant for what was said then. What we have now in front of us, that's the main thing. We have Gedolei HaPoskim actually that say that the Miyurach Techeiles is the Chilaz Techeiles. We have 6 Gedolei Achronim which refer to the Miyurach Techeiles as the Chilaz Techeiles. This is something which the Rav did not speak from the beginning to the end of the Shiur. This is not something which, you listen to the Shiur, it sounds like there are a few Yingelite, there are a few Avreichim, troublemakers, every now and then they come up with a new idea, new trouble to make. This is what, and they're trying to make trouble. And let's see if the troublemakers are, maybe they hit it now, maybe not. That's usually the topic. Most of the people that come out against Techeiles do not mention at once any of these Gedolei Achronim which hold that the Miyurach Techeiles is the Chilazim. The Gedolei Achronim are supposed to set the tone for the sugya. They are the neshama from the sugya. We can figure it out. We can be done if they're right or they're wrong. But they are supposed to set the tone for the sugya. And one of the reasons why those that are misnagid to the Techeiles don't ever say it in the shirim, and if they do, in the Contrasim, They say that they are making a mistake. They didn't know. If they would know the Shmurek Strongulus, they would say, oh, that's for sure not it. That's the most common answer. But usually they don't even talk about it. And the reason is because most of the time, the point of those that are Masnaget in Techeiles is to bring out how these people don't go according to Gedolim. And if it would be said that we have Gedolim Achronim that hold that this is the Chilas and Techeiles, not scientists, not Yungelite, not Talmidei Chachamim. We're talking about Gedolim Achronim, Gedolim Paiskim, that hold this is the Chilas and Techeiles. The whole narrative wouldn't exist anymore. And as I said, I believe the Rav does not know these Achronim exist. He doesn't even mention it from beginning to end. It's clear that the Rav did not get his information from those who have the interest of the mitzvah and Techeiles in mind, only from those that have the interest of a certain narrative. So, who are those Gedolei Achronim? There's a Sefer Shiltei HaGeborim and Hilchos Klei HaMikdash. He's quoted by the Kadmonim, by the Tesis Jantif a few times, the Pri Chadash, the Birkei Yosef, the Chassam Sofer, many Gedolei Achronim bring him down. Rabbi Haram Haroife. He writes in Hilchos Klei HaMikdash, Perik Ayin Tes, Remesh Hayam Shenikir Papura, the creature of the ocean creature which is called Papura, Vihi Chalazayin Shitzovim B'Yisat Techeiles. That's the Chalaz in which they make Techeiles from. Clearly stated by one of the Gedolei Achronim that the Purpura, which is the Murex Trunculus, is the other name, is the Chilaz in which they make Techeiles from. The Chavos Yair and Shulchan Aruch Mekor Chaim, Simin Yudches, Sif Cotton Gimel, writes, this is a halacha sefer. B'chidishim, he goes in the Ksafti, the dam chilazin shetzayvim b'tcheles, the dam chilazin that we make tcheles, ein eblo, rak tzava purpur, shenase midag shenikra hadag purpur. The chilazin comes from, he speaks about the dog, that's a different discussion what it means, but it comes from a dog which is called purpur. Dog, as we'll see, has different meanings, but he's clearly stating that it comes from a creature from the ocean, which is called purpur. The papura, just like the Shiltei HaGeborim. Rosham Shaful Hirsch writes, on the pasuk Besmuni Tuni Chayil, Chilazain, the Chazal says it's going in the Chilazain, purpur shnecker. It's the purpur shnecker. The shnecker in Yiddish is a snail, and he's saying that the Chilazain comes from the purpur snail. In the Sefer Te'afos Reim, it's a Persian Reim, which was in Spashat, a lot of Kallus. In Kallus, he writes, the chilazin which they make Techeiles from, he hanikra chilazin adoimi purpur shneke. He says it's also the same words as the Rasham Shmuel Hirsch, called purpur shneke. And then we have another two Gedolei Achronim, the Yavitz and Radal. They don't say the name, but what they say is they refer to what all the almost Olam speak about, which is Muskim, side by those that hold Techeiles, and side by those that disagree with Techeiles, that all these books are talking about the Murex Trunculus, the Papura. And the Yavitz actually asks a question from these books on Chazal, because we find it in Pirkei Lezer that the Chilazon came from the Kineres. So the question is, how does that stem? The Gemara says that it comes from Mediterranean. And he says, the Kedava, just like Misom the Torah at Haifa, that's what the Gemara says. And he says, the Kedava is mamash kasvi gam sefer iris olam. Yesh kaisve yesh amedinas. He's right. All the people that are writing the history write that there's the Sefer Imus Olam write that there's in this place where Chazal clearly say we know from the historical, from the Metzias, that's where they made Techeiles all the generations. And how could Chazal say in Pirkei Lezer that it's in the Yam Kineres? And the Radal on Pirkei Lezer basically quotes this Yavitz. He writes that it's he asked the same question, and he brings the same Gemara, and he brings this from the Umas Olam, that we know that the Chilazon is exact in the Mediterranean over there, Mentul Haifa. How could Chazal say it's Yam Kineres? They're clearly referring to the famous Murex Trunculus, the Purpura, which all the books discussed as the dying in those days. and they're naming off the Pasha, that was the Chilazon. So we have 6 Gedolei Achronim, Rebbe Avraham Aroifa, the Shultei Gebarim, the Chabes Yod, Yavitz, Radal, Shamshugel, Fol Hirsch, the Te'afis Reim. They all say that the Miruk's Trunculus, the Papura, is the Chilazon Techeiles. None of them is mentioned even once throughout the whole Shiur. This should be the beginning. This is the basics. The Gedolei Achronim, like the Rav says, they're supposed to set the tone for the whole sugya. Okay, we could deal with it, see if they're accurate. We could discuss it, the Kadaka Shel Torah, but that is the basis of the whole sugya. So we're not talking about Yungalite. The question when we start the sugya from Techeiles, we have to ask ourselves: were Gedolei Achronim right, or are they wrong? Are we this that we're not wearing the Miruk's Trunculus, which is not according to Gedolei Achronim? Is that appropriate or is that not appropriate? That's the question that should be asked. The question shouldn't be asked, are the Yingalite that decided to make a tumult, are they right or wrong? That's not the question. The appropriate way to ask it is the Gedolei Achronim that wrote this thing, some of them, Lahalacha Lamaisa, the Chabes Yod quotes it in his Sefer Mekar Chaim, are they right or are they wrong? That should be the discussion. Now, there's a lot of more Maramakomis, black and white Maramakomis on this subject, which was also not mentioned even once. All that the Rabbi mentioned, the only tzad that it's a snail, the Rabbi mentioned that there is a medrash, a famous medrash, shechalazon azek she godol nartika godol imoy. When the chalazon grows, the nartik grows with it, so it sounds like it has a shell. So it sounds like it has a shell. Then he mentioned different nusach of the medrash, of a medrash, and then he mentioned a sefer aruch that says the snail. There's no. He says the rishon, the aruch. There's no such a aruch, so that doesn't exist. But there are this medrash that says nartika gadol imoy. It's not just a svara that this is the chilazon Techeiles. It's not just a mashmois. Actually, many Gedolei Achronim base themselves on this medrash to say that the chilazon is a snail. There's no one that argues. You have to make this clear. There's no one that argues on these Achronim. There are no one that argues on anything we said from those Achronim that say the chilazon is murex except for the Din Rebbe. And there's no one that argues on these Achronim and even Rishonim that say that the chilazon is a snail. There are those that declared, is it a davatar, is it a davatame? They didn't give any definitive answer. But they weren't clear what it was. We have clear from the Achronim that clearly say that based on this medrash, we know that Chilaz is a snail. We have even actually a sefer, a Rishon, the Retanchon Yishalmi. The Retanchon Yishalmi is a sefer which the Mechaber lived. He was the biggest gadol. He lived 50 years after the Rambam was nifter. He was the biggest gadol in Mitzrayim, in Syria, and his sefer was nafetz but all the deiris in Mizrach and Tamani Gedolim, all the deiris had it in Mitzrayim, Miyad Liyad. They would give it over. There was a sefer which is used by Gedolei Yisroel, all the deiris. He was a Rishon right after the Rambam. He wrote a sefer to explain what the Rambam means. Words like an aruch on the Talmud. He wrote a sefer on the Rambam to explain the words of the Rambam. So actually, he's coming to explain what the Rambam. When the Rambam says chilazon, what does the Rambam mean by word chilazon? Chilazon hazeh. This is his words. Kol zman shi gadol natika gadol imoy. This chilazon has a shell. He's bringing out this medrash that has a shell. He hachalazon ba'arvi gamken. He says that the chilazon of this medrash is the chilazon, what we call in Arabic, al-chazon. It's the same word in Arabic. He goes on, V'dam chilazon shetzovim b'Techeiles gamken min hachalazon. The chilazon of the Techeiles is also this chilazon, which we call in Arabic chilazon, and what the Medrash says, Kol zman sheyigadol natika gadol imoy. He's clearly saying that chilazon is a snail. In Arabic, all the deiris, we have many maramakomis, we'll get to it later, Be'ez Hashem, that in Arabic, the word chilazon means snail until today's days. I heard a shaya from a friend on Techeiles. He said when he gave the shiur at Techeiles in his yeshiva, he has a few Syrians there, and they all said, "What do you mean? Chilazon is a snail." That's what it is until today's days. That's how it always was You see in all the Svarim that chilazon in Arabic meant, in all those languages over there, Eastern languages, means snail. And so Reb Tanchum Yerushalmi explains the Rambam that chilazon means snail. So that's a rishon which no one can argue with. Then we have on the medrash itself, the Eis Yitzef, chilazon hazeh explains is a chomet. Nikr b'lashon arvi chilazon. He also says it's a chomet. A chomet is a snail. That's the lashon akraf of the snail. One of the Shemona Shiratzim is a chomet. He says it's a chilazon. The chilazon is a chomet, and it's called in Arabic. Also, he brings the same raya from Arabic. It's called chilazon in Arabic. The Techeiles Yisroel brings down the medrash. So that's the Eitz Yosef on the medrash itself. The Techeiles Yisroel brings down the medrash, and he says, "Ba'orach erech chalazon hashlishi hevi hamedrash chalazon yibriya shlesh nartek agabav imken he mushal kreta." He says that this is the mushal kreta v'kenze because of gaznis shatcheles nas midam mushal hanikra purpa shneka. So he clearly says that it is a shneka, which is a snail. The Techeiles Aretz also says the chometz is beloshen arvi al chazon shneka imuchim mizeh shechilazon atcheles chichomet, and he says that's the same thing. It says in the medrash chilazon hazek shigodol malbisha godol imay mizeh shneka kenoida. This sefer avodah tama brings down. It says like this: V'rashi yanel kosav shitay las be'emes mimin hashablulim, which is a snail. V'yeshle nartik v'nartik godel imoy k'masham medrash. He clearly says we have over here another 6. We have the Bnei Tamchin, another 5 achronim. Maria Koyen, I skipped the Maria Koyen, the Maral Miprag's son-in-law, also says on the medrash chilazon zechomet, the Eitz Yosef, Techeiles Yisroel, Techeiles Aretz, and avodah tama. All these achronim say that the chilazon is a snail. So besides the 6 achronim that say the chilazon is the miyurex, we have another 6 achronim, or 5 achronim, and 1 rishon that says the chilazon is a snail. All this was totally nishmat from the whole shiur. Hella, how could you give a shiur trying to find out what the chilazon is without knowing, without saying all these marmakaimis? There's more. I'm just going to read it down because these are all basics. This is the black and white from the sugya. The sugya doesn't start without this. On the medrash, Matnas Kuhuna writes on the medrash Natika Godel Imoy. He says it's telas shetzevim midamat chelas. This is what the medrash says has a nartik, has a telas also. Something which is a telas and has a nartik obviously is a snail. And then there's the Baal Shiva. Musa says this medrash is talking about the chilazon not chelas. Okay. This is actually not only, believe it or not, it's not only, we mentioned not until now, these 14 Makoris. This is also on the Geonim, and there's more Rishonim that clearly say that a chilazon is a snail. There's on the Gemara, which the Rav discusses, he asks questions from this Gemara on the Mirex Trunkless. Hatzad chilazon v'hapoitzei. Gemara discusses if what you're over or not on Shabbos. So there's a guy in the Sefer Ginzik Kedem, brings down the Tshuvas HaGeonim, and the lashon the Geonim is Hatzad chilazon he died aleo klaf, which means he teilas ashaleo nartik. The Geonim, one of the Geonim write that the chilazon, Hatzad chilazon, is a telas which has a nartik. Unbelievable. We have a Goyin that writes that the chilazon is a snail. What's most mind-boggling is these next 2 Marmakaimis, how the Rav didn't mention it even once. Rashi, the Rav brings down a couple of different Rashis who describes what a chilazon is. But we have 2 more Rashis that describe, and it's not mentioned even once. The Gemara by the Zohar Daf Chasam Beis speaks about different refuahs. One of the things you're supposed to use is Mishkadei Cholzaini. Rashi writes that at least that Limtz Belaz. The Gemara over there it says Limtz Belaz. The same thing is what is it? We'll get to it in a second. The Rashi and Masechtas B'choris says Alamat Chesam Aleph. There's a mum, and one of the things that Pasal B'chor is a mum called Chilazon. So over there in Rashi it says Chilazon. In front of us, the Gears of Rashi is Liman. but everyone it's agreed on that there's no such word. All the people that came before Techeiles agreed that it's supposed to say, that's what it says in Kisviyadis, it's supposed to say limats. Limts, that's what it's supposed to say. And Rabbeinu Gershom over there on this mum of the Bukhar, which is called Chilazin, says clearly Chilazin Kern Belaz limits. So we have a Rashi in Avodah Zarah, Mesechtes Avodah Zarah, and Rabbeinu Gershom, and Rashi in Mesechtes Bukharius, that they say that a Chilazin is a limt. What is a limt? A limt is a snail. Rashi in Chulin, in Chagiga, and other places says that a limt is a snail. So we have clearly Rashi describing the Chilazin as a snail. And Rabbeinu Gershom was even earlier Rishon that describes the Chilazin as a snail. Unbelievable. We have Rishonim that say the Chilazin is a snail. We have Rabbeinu Gershom, Rashi, Rabbeinu Tam Yerushalmi, we have the Geonim, many Achronim that say the Chilazin is a snail, many 6 Achronim that say the Chilazin is Miyuk Strongklus. All this was left out. This is the basic Hagdama to the Chilazin Techeiles. We have more Rishonim. Rashi says the Chilazin, that the Chilazin is a type of worm creature. Rashi says in Sanhedrin Tzadik Aleph that the Chilazin is a talas sheyotzim min hayam. The Ravya in Shabbos Siman Kuf Tzadik Daled says the Chilazin talas ve'ein lo ar. The Rash and the Ravid and Teres Kahanim say that the Chilazin, the Teres Kahanim over there says, talking about talas shani, itelas. If it's just say the word, the Torah would say the word talas. I would think it could be any other color. As long as it comes from a worm, so that is Techeiles. That would be kosher for the talas shani. So the Torah has to write shani to tell you it's red. The talas is not enough. So what is this talas that the Torah would be speaking about? So the Rash and the Rabbi would say, if the Torah would write the word talas, I would think, could only the word talas, I would possibly meant the chilazin ha-Techeiles. And then we have Reb Nosson Ava Yeshiva from the Rishonim also says the chilazin talas. The Ran, and the Ritva b'shem the Ra'ab b'shem the Ramban also says that the chilazin is a guf atam. It means it doesn't have any avarim. Chilazin halazaynis halalish of ashpes. What is the chilazin? It's a guf atam. It means some type of talas type of creature, which is found. Everyone sees in the ashpes. Besides seeing over here that the chilazin is a famous thing that is very common in the garbage cans. They clearly say that it's some type of worm creature. So we have another, like 7, 8 Rishonim, Gedolei Rishonim that say it's a talas. So before trying to find out what the chilazin is, these are the basic information you're supposed to know. So maybe it's a slug, maybe it's a type of worm. Okay, so we can make a big machlokes with everything we said until now, or no, we say that the chilazin is a snail. This is a worm, and this will just add to all. Be consistent with everything we said until now. That's the discussion. We'll get to it later. But this is obviously information which has to be put down, that it's not a fish. When we say it's a dog, it's not a fish. One second. Sorry. So these are the basic black and white information you have to know before you start the whole sugya. And then, like we said before, we had the Tam Yerushalmi, that the chilazin in Arabic is a snail. It's very important. The Rishonim use this halacha l'maisa, and we have the in the Sefer Hashrashim, Eben Genach, and we have the Tam Yerushalmi, Tvuas Haaretz, and the Eitz Yosef. They all refer to the lashon in the words in Arabic that chilazin is a snail, which is pretty strong. So that is the first part of this Hakdama, that all the many Gedolei Achronim that say it's a snail, some of them that say it's Miyuk Strongklus, and Rishonim that say it's a snail. These are basic things which none of these things, not one of these Maramekaimis were said over during the whole Shiur. and I'm repeating it over and over again because this is so important. This is just the basics. Okay, next point. Point the Rav said during his share many times that Techeiles is nignaz. He said he gave Rei Yishurim on it that why it's nignaz, and he's not going to go speak about it that it's nignaz, but he repeated it many times that he's not going to speak about it that it's nignaz. He made sure that everyone should understand that it's not according to the Messiah. We have a different Messiah than those that are wearing Techeiles. That the Messiah for the Gans Kallus is that it's nignaz. The only problem is a Messiah has to be given over midor dar. That is the actual meaning of a Messiah. If we are saying that he's Messiah, I ask and I beg of someone to put forth. This is a famous taina which is said over and over again that we have a Messiah that the Techeiles is nignaz. I ask and I beg of anyone, please put down the Messiah. Where is this Messiah? It's such a famous Messiah. Who is the one that's giving over this Messiah? Please go back generations, go back to the Achronim, go back to the Rishonim, go back and find Bimiyasidach. Don't throw out a Messiah. We can't abuse the word Messiah is very, very important to us. Let's not abuse it. That's number one. Number two is actually the Messiah. If we look in the Gedolei Achronim and Kadmonim, the Messiah seems to be just the opposite. The Messiah in Kallus seems to be that the Techeiles could come back before the Chilazim, before Mashiach. It's not nignaz. It's not some type of creature which was nignaz benes, or it's like different things that were nignaz, the Oren, different things, the Mishkan from Moshe Rabbeinu, different things that were nignaz. This is not. We have a Messiah. If we're looking for a Messiah, the Messiah is actually quite clear that Techeiles, the Chilaz and Techeiles could return. And I'm just going to state those Gedolei Achronim. None of these are ever, almost never ever mentioned by the anti-Techeiles. Nothing of them was mentioned during the whole Shiur of the Rav, and it's never mentioned to anyone that goes against the Techeiles. Which, even though most of these Marmakomis are quite famous, are to be found anywhere. The Maril, who is Avian Shobnei Ashkenaz, the Be'er Sheva writes, Mi Yover Acha Melech Harav HaGodol Mari Molon, Shehi Rav Muvik Shal Kol HaAchronim Sheba Ashkenaz. He is the Rav Muvik of all, he's the biggest of all the Achronim Sheba Ashkenaz. When he comes to explain, there's a Shaila, the Chazal goes that a beged Pishton is pater, according to some Rishonim, is pater from Lavan also. You don't have to put on any tzitzis in a beged Pishton. Why? Because you might come to the client. So the question is, if today's days, they were discussing, if in their days there was no Techeiles, is it usher to have a beged Pishton with tzitzis? Are you allowed to put in beged Pishton tzitzis? Because how it goes that you shouldn't. So that is the shaila they're discussing. Rabbi Tam held that it's not. Is you not the Zer doesn't change. The Rosh holds it does. Wouldn't have Techeiles doesn't change. So today's days you're allowed to put on tzitzis. And Rabbi Tam says you're not allowed to put on tzitzis. And the Maril explains. The Maril goes with this shit that you're not allowed to put on tzitzis. And the Svarahu, it's a Svara. Shema Yavzeh David Lekakulai. We might come back to the period of that is Techeiles. She had Techeiles Matzi. Kolchkin, it's just that etzem svara. We might find it. He says, and of course, I mean to say even without what he's going to say, it's a svara that we might find it. But and of course, according to what the Smag writes, because of Smag, the Oisei Dag Chilazin Hebeyam Melech, because of Simonim, the Kal HaYalas is Techeiles. He says it would be easy to make the Techeiles. So we have to be choshesh. We might find it in the times of the Maril. That's what the Heilige Maril writes. He was choshesh ledina that the Techeiles might come back. The Erlas Talmud, Sefer of the Paiskim, in Siman Tes, writes, Afik ledav the manazeh leket Techeiles makom gazrinan. The Chaim Pirish Rabbeinu Tam. He says Rabbeinu Tam writes this. Yesheme Yizgalat Techeiles v'yobi ledei isiklayim. We are worried in the times of Rabbeinu Tam, in the times of the Erlas Talmud, we might find Techeiles and we might come to Isiklayim. In the Sefer Shilul Zaysim, from when Gedolei Taimoni Paiskim writes the same thing. The shitta from this shitta from the Erlas Talmud is brought down in the Mishnah Berurah. he actually quotes this Eilis Tamid. If you look, he quotes that way that you're not allowed to this paskins that you are allowed to, but he quotes this shita that not to put tzitzis on a beged pishtan, and he's mitzayin to the Eilis Tamid, and the Eilis Tamid explains it for this reason that it might come back Techeiles. Meaning the Mishabrura quotes this shita that Techeiles might come back, and we have to be chodesh for it. Those, just to clarify, those that argue that's what we paskin, that we're not chodesh, that you know all that put on. It's not a diyam b'chlal. If we don't find anyone that this says, oh, the reason is because we're not chodesh, because it was nignas. No one ever says that. It's just a different machlekes. Are we supposed to be chodesh? Should we be mevatel mitzvahs because it might come back, or as long as we don't have it, we don't have to worry. But if not to put on tzitzis, that's the whole shaila. It's not a discussion if we're chodesh to come back or not, if it's nignas or not. The Malbim writes, "I am shalvat shuvas Radvaz. Efshar she'ada yoyim hi motzi ela she'en yoydim l'tzoydei." The Radvaz writes, it could be until today's it's motzi, just we don't know how to catch it. Zuk the Malbim, according to the Radvaz. Basad mitzitzis. We also about pishton. We should be chodesh. Yesh chashash Shem yimul do lasses Techeiles. The Klei Chemda Pashas Masay says the same thing, that efshar ayidei tircha limtzay. I say, like the Radvaz writes. The Chemda Shloim Even Ezer, the Gedolei Lita, Simon Tess, in the Chuvas Bris Avram, Simon Menvov, both quotes him, the Chemda Shloim. Ein hadova muchra shlo yimtza Techeiles af bezman hazeh. And that's what he writes. We might find it. I'm just quoting these things which are black and white. It might sound repetitive, but it's important because all these things are being ignored. They're never being mentioned. The Duvna Magid in the Sefer HaMidas, he says, if we wouldn't have a Kabbalah that Techeiles is not Makalovim, we would go searching for it. Just like in his times, there was it wasn't Motzi, Esther Glulav and Adasim, then he sent people to go far away to get it. He says, if Techeiles would have been Ma'akivis Alavam, we would have gone searching for it. Meaning to say, he understood that there was a possibility, actually, serious nefesh, but there was some type of ability to go searching and maybe find it. Tzvi Pesach Frank in the Sefer Mikdash Melech says, Devade Esher Gamayoyim Limtzei Techeiles L'Mitzvah. Then the Rabbi Levi, very important. The Rav, when he quotes that Techeiles is not, we have a Messiah that Techeiles is not around and it's nignaz. He quotes a Beis Levi. Which Beis Levi does he quote? The one that Rabbi Yasha brings, which Rabbi Yasha brings down from the Radzina Sefer, which is Mefursim, those known those Makkashis Beis Levi. He brings down why the Beis Levi didn't put on the Radzina Techeiles. What was his tightness? So this is the lashon of the Beis Levi brought down by the Radzina, brought down by the Rabbi Yashav Zechanit Tzadikim Levracha. Kvoid malosei. Loi bir b'dvarav. The Beis Levi is saying you have not explained ma zois motza achash nishkach. You haven't explained to us what got lost. What did you find after it got lost? In Metzias Hadag, you haven't explained to us anything about finding the fish, the chilazon, or taking out the tzeva. Virak achrei asher kvoid malasa yivarazos. Only after you would explain to us, mimevaret us. You explained to us. You explained to us that there was something around in times of Chazal that they had that we lost. If you could explain this to us, then we would be mechuyev. Lashon is we would mechuyev to wear it. Ochain, but in Neymar ki hadag hayiv mitzias. But if you tell me that this dog was always around, the gam haitzais tzivay hayidua, and they always knew how to use it for dying. B'chol hazman min hazmanim. She'avru leinu me'esha paska Techeiles Yisroel. If you're going to tell me this thing was always around, they always used it. And our grandparents and our great grandparents did not wear it. Then we have a Messiah that this is not the Techeiles. Even if you had proved to me 100% that this is accurate according to everything Chazal say, v'Chelaz not Techeiles, only then, even then, we would have a Messiah that this is not the Chalaz, not Techeiles, so it's not negated. Even if you would bring me like the sand of the ocean, proof that this is it, it's not going to help against the Messiah, Kabbalah of Messiah. Only after you explain to us, that this chilaza and the way and the dog and the way they made it stopped, the nishkach, and it got lost. Any time in the times and the Kabbalah got lost, then we like you said before, we would to listen to you and wear it, and it would be a raya, your proofs to use for a raya. So what the Beis Levi is really saying is that something which other Gedolah Achreim said, the Chasnish and the Shus Malka and others said, that the Radzina came with a squid, with a cuttlefish, which was pretty famous, was used for things it was used for ink in the pen, and it was always around. The Vilna Gaon had it. Someone showed me a newspaper. He said he doesn't know why the Radzina, times of the Radzina, this is written in Shas Maisa, why the Radzina had to go to Italy to look for the Chalaz and Techeiles. Cuttlefish I find it in every corner. So he's saying that if this is something which is matzi, we all knew about it and no one used it, so we have a Messiah against it. But if not, we're mechuyev to listen to it. This is what after the Yashiv brings this down, he writes, and I don't know if what the Chaykim say, this is the Chalaz and Techeiles, is applied to this or not. We'll get to that maybe later. But it's amazing. The Beis Levi actually says just the opposite. That if you could prove me that this thing was lost and the Messiah was lost, the Nifsik of Zeh Kabbalah, then we would be mechuyev to listen to you. He actually says just the opposite. Whatever the Beis Levi is saying is very consistent with all the other Achronim that say that it's possible to bring it back and prove that this is the Chalaz and Techeiles. It's mind-boggling that the Rav brings this as a yesod for the Messiah that we don't have Techeiles. Actually, Beis Levi is a makar, another makar, most like all the Achronim right, that we could bring back the Chalaz and Techeiles if we prove this is it, and we have the sufficient proofs to prove it. Now, the important to point out that the Yashiv starts off the question: what's the halach in Roy v'Nochel hatot tzitzis tzvua b'tzevat Techeiles achrei shlodas choykim b'zmenenu bor lahem shematzos lechalazim she'amra Torah. His question was presented. We found the Chalazim, the Chaykim, the archaeologists, and the people that are searching found the claim to find the Chalazim and Techeiles. Nothing Toradic was presented to the Yashiv. Should we listen to what they say? It wasn't a question of his Chavas Das on the beer if we found it or not. It was just a question: should we be choishish for what they're saying? So Rabbi Yashiv says, he brings up Beis Levi, he says, I have no clue. You didn't present me with any history. So I don't know, these are his words. I don't know if this taina applies this or not. And the Rav says, Rabbi Kallus says the same exact thing. I don't know. And he was madgish in the end of the shiur a couple of times. He said it over, repeated these words, and I don't know if it applies in this thing. Now, this is the basics. These are the basics. This idea that the Miyuk Shokas was not around, that it was lost, and the Xeris Malchus and details of not having it was not around. These are the basics. Anyone that researched it a little bit, all this Teresim that speak about it, quote this. I don't know how in the world the Rav did not know. The Rav quotes this and he emphasizes this point of the Yashiv. The Rav says the same thing. He does not know if this taina of the Beis Levi applies to this Miuk Shrunklus, which is clearly no shaila b'chlal that it does not apply. And that's why most of the Misnag Techeiles don't even quote this Beis Levi, because this Beis Levi is actually consistent with all Gedolei Achronim that we could reinstate Techeiles if we prove it al pi the Torah the way it's supposed to be done. So it's unbelievable that this is even quoted for our source and having a Masori that we don't have the Techeiles. Now, another source I have over here put out by the Hapelas, a likut from different things that was said over. It's called like a little mimer. Levi Omar Timecha v'Yirecha l'Ish Chasidecha. It's different zechronis which Hagoyin Hagadol and Moshe Sternbach said over on the Brisker Rav Zechronis Tzadik Levracha. A lot of different things from all different topics. On one topic speaks about over there is tzitzis b'tchelas. Pam achas, he writes, he said over Moshe Sternbach is an example in Zintenstack, Sharafu Shalema. Pam achas, because Shechanachstid Lumeron Hagriz. I once went in, he was very close to the Brisker Rav. I once went into the Brisker Rav. Re'isa, I saw him, Yoshev Yachad in Benoy Hagadol Hagrid. He saw the Brisker Rav and Rebel sitting down, learning together. The Loime Imoy is a contrast at Cheles Shal Admir Radzin. They were learning together the Sefer, the Radziner have a Sefer. This is no pro Techeiles is writing this. It's not fabricated by anyone. This is something which was written by people that are not connected to Techeiles, not shaykhs to Techeiles, saying over by Moshe Sternbach a fact which he saw with his eyes. But he saw the Brisker Rav and Rebel Soloveitchik, the Rosh Hashiva from Brisk, sitting and learning the Radziner Sefer. Because the Brisker Rav was a big Yerushalayim, and he was terrified that we might be mevatel mitzvahs. It's a pella because no one was mekabel, and if you do other things he said about the Techeiles. But it seems like he once got worried. We should figure it out ourselves. Why are we relying on anyone else? Let's sit down and learn. That's why Yoshev Levara Hituvasugi went through good. And if maybe he found the Techeiles. This is what Moshe Sternbach quoted. If he held it was Nignaz, if he had a Messiah was Nignaz, and obviously he would never have done that. Especially according to what the Rav says, that even if you prove it to me that it's it, that we would be potter from wearing it. And obviously the Brisker Rav didn't hold of that, at least according to Moshe Sternbach. The Yerucham Fischl Perlau, we wrote a sefer on the sefer mitzvah. He wrote on the Psati Goyin, a big fat sefer, Goyin Oilam. So he wrote a oris on the sefer from the Radzina sefer. And when the Radzina discusses about finding the Techeiles, could you reinstate it or not? He says, "To me, I have a tmu on Mechaber that he doesn't bring a Ramban. We have a Ramban that says clearly that Techeiles was a Nignaz, and it's possible maybe to find it. This is his lashon. The lashon he quotes like this: "Tmiani al Mechaber shlo yhor al divrei Ramban, the Mechames the Shabbos shekasa v'hine lebal hamor." According to the Baal Hamor, achshav of mekaymis halalu ein adam tzarech lahat lov navade. In our places, says the Ramban, according to the Baal Hamor, that holds that Techeiles and Makkos lovin, we don't have to put lovin by itself. What's the words? B'mekaymis halalu. Zok Yerucham Fischl shnir behedim l'shoyda shehem and Ramban the gambas manoi eshe yesh mekaymis shoylam Techeiles. Not only could you find it, Ramban said possible that there are places that you might go and find it in his times. They might even have it in use. Okay, so all these Gedolim obviously hold that you could find the Techeiles. There's no Masorah on the Techeiles, those Nignaz. And there were many Gedolim that were the Radzina Techeiles. There's a guy in the Dovin Naim Lakenbach, who was the Raven in Preshborg. Tam Sofi wore the Radzina Techeiles. The Saris Shuba wanted to get it. The Masham writes in his Tzavah, is brought in the beginning of the Sefer Techeiles Marcha, that he asked to be buried with the Radzina Techeiles. In Orches Chaim, in Orches Rabbeinu from the Stipler, brings down the Itzvah Panavesh wore the Radzina Techeiles. The Stipler itself said that the reason that he would put on the Radzina Techeiles, but he doesn't want people copying him, so that's why he doesn't do it. Reb Chaim Berlin, there's a letter from the Chaim Berlin that asks the Radzina to send Techeiles. I heard from Enikel from the Bial Rebbe that his grandfather wore the Radzina Techeiles, many Gedolim wore it. And obviously, they didn't hold that the Techeiles was Nignaz, or else it was just, the whole discussion doesn't start. The last Ma'amakam on this subject I would like to quote is the Chaznish. The Rav quoted the Chaznish. He said, I'm not going to speak about the Chaznish that says, what do you lose from wearing Techeiles? You know, so he said a famous story that there was this person walking around with glasses without lenses because what do you lose? So the Rav said in today's days there are people that wear glasses, would wear glasses without lenses, so the kind of what do you lose doesn't apply. Basically, so this Chaznish, which is very, very famous, it says, what do you lose for wearing Techeiles? You're Meshuggah if you do things just because what do you lose? What is always left out is the words of the Chaznish. This obviously comes from the Maisa Ish, maybe other places also, but the Maisa Ish, before they quote this, there's a whole arichis, which is unbelievable and expected, always omitted. They bring down from Rav Shraga Hyman, you can look it up in the Sefer itself, Rav Shraga. He was a goyin, a big Talmid Chacham, a close friend with Rav Shlomo Dovletzky. He was very interested in the topic of Techeiles, and he went to the Chaznish to speak about the Zinus Techeiles. We should put it on it. Maybe it's a suffix. At least a suffix we should put it on it. So the Chaznish told him, a philosophic income. There's no even suffix. All the Chachmei Hadar in times of the Radzina, Cholki Alav. They were cholk on him. V'yachav Rabbim, halach Rabbim. Reuben Kukulam Cholki Alav. Ibn Neim, he writes the Beis Levi was against it. The Achashal Baal Cheshik Shloime, and he writes that the brother from the Cheshik Shloime, Beretzal Al-Koyen, wrote a sefer called Yaches and Mitzri Tanai B'chol against all the tinus of the Radzina. We don't know what sefer he's talking about, but this is what the Chaznish, this was quoted from Reb Shraga Hyman. This is what the Chaznish said, that they all were mevared, they all went through the sugya and they argue with the beer of the Radzina Rebbe. And he said, so he asked, maybe it was a shiloh from Midas, maybe it was, we can't like those that didn't want to accept the Radzinas because they didn't want to accept him because of who he was or whatever. He says, Ma shaykh b'zamidas, hello, you need no b'mitzvah. How can you speak about any other? It was a shiloh from the Raisa, and of course they went through it, and that's what they came out. So that's why Yachiv Rabbim, Lach Rabbim, we don't have a suffix. Another time, the Radzina, the Chaznish told him, hello, ain't Shem Hezek Gedover, lahatot suffix Techeiles. There's no. What could you lose? He used this svara. What could you lose? Just the opposite. Haloi ain't Shem Hezek Gedover. Haloi lahatot suffix Techeiles. There's no problem. And Chaznish said, even if it was the slightest chance for that this would be the right Techeiles, all the Gedolim would have put it on. Why not? Meaning to say that svara of why not, when we're talking about a bittul mitzvah Techeiles, if there's even a slightest reason, then we say why not. After all this, it's brought down. The Chaznish said the imloy lo yazik and that taina. Meaning to say only after the Chaznish was clear that we have a psak from Gedolei Achronim, from the Friedrich Gedoris, that this is not the Chalas, not Techeiles. That's why we're saying on them. Only then could you say it's Meshuggah to put it on. So that is the taina of the Chaznish, which was omitted by all those that disagree with the Techeiles. So actually, from the Chaznish itself is proof that if we could prove it, you're mechuyev to wear. That is consistent, as we said until now. That it's very consistent with Achronim that we could bring back the Techeiles. So I would end off with the Bakasha. If anyone has a line of a Messiah against this line, please line it up and let's discuss it. I haven't seen anyone quoting a Messiah, a detailed Messiah of anyone, any Gedolei Achronim that lived 100 years ago, to say that this is not the Chalas, not Techeiles, and actually that Techeiles is Nignaz, and actually we have just the opposite, a Messiah from Gedolei Yisroel, that the Chalas is not Nignaz, and it might come back. The Sefri that the Rav spoke that Techeiles is Nignaz, mentioned. The Ramban says it's going in the time of after Yemais Mashiach, in the time of Tchias HaMeisim. So according to that, it's free. If you learn that means that we're not going to have Techeiles, we're not going to have Techeiles even when Mashiach comes back. Obviously, that's impossible to say. And the Medrash says that Medrash Rabbi says Techeiles and Lignaz Ein Sham in the Mefarshim, but it's irrelevant because we have Gedolah HaPoskim that say that the Chilazim could come back, and that should make the end of the discussion. That should make this Messiah that Techeiles could come back. Okay, that's the second point. The first point was all the Gedolah Achronim that say the Chilazim is the Murex trunkless and is a snail, and Rishonim that say that. The second point was the Messiah. Now we'll go to the third point. The Gedolah Yisrael, those that are not wearing Techeiles are against the Gedolah Yisrael. Unbelievable. Against the zakat of people that are against, are making a revolution against Gedolah Yisrael. They're not listening to Gedolah Yisrael. Not alone, they're against the Messiah. They're Mavatal the Messiah. Not alone, they're against Rishonim. They're against the Gedolah Yisrael. They're against Gedolah Yisrael. It's amazing. There are so many Chashav Rabbanim, so many Gedolah Yisrael that held of the Techeiles. That held, this is the Chilazim of Techeiles. Many of the Rabbanim that held, that don't even hold of it, told their Talmidim, if you're convinced, go ahead. Tava al bracha. Many of them said, are encouraged it. I don't know how we could use the Gedolim and use it, this topic, and say that these people are going against the Gedolim. Just to mention a few, some of them are Yedua, some of them are not. Rebelski Zechanim Tzadik Yivracha, the Yeshiva Tevedas, everyone knows word of Techeiles. He actually on videos saying that it's for sure Techeiles. Actually, I have a recording which is not famous. Rebelski said he looked in the subject for 20 years, and he's convinced that this is the Chalas and Techeiles. I want to have someone that looked in the subject for that long, even a fraction of that came out against Techeiles. Reb Zalman Nechemia Goldberg is a big Paisik. Most of the big part of the Haro and Chosh Mishpat today came from him. He wore of Techeiles. He actually, I spoke to his ankle. He told me he encouraged him that his ankle, small kids, should wear Techeiles. Reb Zalman Kreiser, I have a letter from a Talmud from Reb Zalman Kreiser, said he wore Techeiles and he saw him wearing Techeiles. Reb Yisroel Levlitsky, we have a picture of him wearing Techeiles. We have a letter of him saying that he wears Techeiles on his Tal's cotton. Reb Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg, we have a picture of him wearing Techeiles, and I know the person who he asked to give the Muyurik's trunkless Techeiles. Actually, I spoke to a Talmud that was someone that was close to him. Not a Talmud, but someone that was close to him, and he asked him, should he put on the Muyurik's trunkless Techeiles? And he told him, unbelievable, as long as they don't disprove it, why shouldn't you put it on? Means to say, in order not to put it on, you should have to disprove it. So, similar to what the Chazon Ish said, that if there would be a Tzeltz or Suffolk, you should put it on. Why not? Zilberman wrote that he studied this subject over for a year, and he anti-being at Techeiles Yosem Mishana, and Mishuchnim Bezeh Bevadois Gemura, Shayidaba Yotzim get a Suffolk Ilo Dain El Masha in Evroyes. The Lord Rav is the kind of Racha wore this Techeiles. Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg, Shiur from Yisroel, the kind of Racha wore this Techeiles, and Reich Weinberg, the kind of Racha wore this Techeiles, and many others, the kind of Racha wore it. And many Gedolah Yisrael B'zman Hazeh that wear it. Rabbi Mazuz, Rosh Shiva, Kisar Achmim from the Gedolah Sfadim today encourages it over and over again, encourages people to wear Techeiles. Rabbi Eli Bevachvagel Shlita is Yidua. All Talmidim have seen his Techeiles. The Yoel Zilman, Rosh Shiva from Adair, so yo, Ramosha Motche Farbstein, Rosh Shiva from Chevron, Kalman Epstein, Shiva Shara Torah, Rechaim Kluft, Yeshiva from Kallus Yaakov, Ramosha Motche Karp, famous Paisik. Where is it? Begeshem Mulzer, a chashav of Paisik in Yerushalayim. Where is it? Holds of it very strong. It was inspiring now. I heard from two Kli Rishons. Moshe Sternbach started wearing Techeiles. L'pa'amim, he wears Techeiles. He actually was printed two chuvas in his arm against Techeiles. He actually started wearing Techeiles. He said, it doesn't sound like he's convinced that this is it, but I actually know the person who he asked it from and who gave it to him, and he told him that he can be mefarsin, that he's chayzer from those chuvas. He holds that the chalazin hat Techeiles. He wears the new chalazin. Other bunch of chashav rabbanim, Kiva Seifer. I can't go through all the names. It's not so important. The Shmuel Navel writes, "Ein mokem lahatel safek b'maskona ki chalazim yurek shranklas hi amakara amiti letzeva atchelas." Amam Afram from the B'datz writes, "Shemin zeh shechilazim yushev kol hakoshes kushiyas v'kulayim adava shi atchelas anochen." Reb Nissen Kaplan said by a Shiur to David Lichtenstein that the longer I looked into this a long time, and the more I look into it, the more I get convinced that this is the right Techeiles. He doesn't wear it because Rabbi didn't wear it, but he's convinced that this is it. Falk Zichron Tzadik Yivracha, his Talmud that puts out his Svarim, his Psakim, writes in a letter, "Be'inyan Techeiles Samyutim Murex Lemetiv Zichroini." As far as I remember, in the years, Meshach Hashem also Indian. The discussion came up a few times, and he was carved levade that this is the Techeiles Shedibra Olav Torah, and he said, if you need any proof that this is the right Techeiles, look at the anti-Techeiles, and for that itself, the times are so schwach, you prove that this is it, and so on. Gedolei Yisroel that are klar, that say that this is it. Many more. I'll stop over here. Okay, until now, what we have over here, this is the Hagdama. Sorry for taking the Hagdama so long. This is the Hagdama for anyone that wants to learn Techeiles. This is the Hagdama you have to know before even going into proof. What we have here is Hamoin Achroinim and Rishonim, and from the Geonim that the Chilazon is a snail. We have Gedolei Achroinim that say the Techeiles is the snail, which is the Murex Tranquilus. We have another Gedolei Rishonim that say the Chilazon was a worm. We have Gedolei Achroinim that say that it's the same thing, what it's called in Arabic. All these are the basics for the Shiur. Then we have the Messiah that is Gedolei Achronim gave us a Messiah that Chilazon might come back. We have to be choishish that the Chilazon might come back. Ladina halacha lamaisa many Gedolei Achronim were choishish ladina. That should be the Messiah for us, that the Chilazon at Techeiles might come back and be choishish to be var the sugya. That is the only Messiah that exists. There is no other Messiah that exists. And then we have many Gedolei Achronim, Gedolei B'zman hazeh, that hold that the Chilazon this is the right Chilazon at Techeiles, and many Gedolei Achronim that hold, that are wearing it and that wore it, and many of them that are encouraging to wear it. Obviously, everything's done with Derech HaTorah, but this is the Hagdama that just to set the facts straight. And I'll repeat again: it is clear that the Rav was misled by certain people which didn't have the Rav's best intentions in mind.
Okay, Shkaya. So
now, part 2.
Okay.
Should we do part 2 now?
Do part 2.
Okay, part 2 is going to be the details. Now we'll just be discussing part 2, the details of what the Rav claimed are proofs that this is not the Chilazon at Techeiles. This was officially the main part of this year. And again, the first part I spoke was what most people probably came out of. Now the second part is the details, which Talmidei Chacham that learned the sugya would be in a henna from. So let's go through a few details. The Rav started with a Yisoid, a Paladig Yisoid. I'll be Magdim. Everyone knows the Ramban and the Melchemes, the Hagdama to Melchemes. The Ramban writes, Al Torah b'vavcha ki kol shivasi al harav zechaya kulam iniyat shuva nitzachos. Don't think that I think all my kashas on the Balmor are black and white. And that machriach you to be murdered. No, I don't think that. I did not trick myself. And you're gonna think, you're gonna find the kasha. You're gonna ask, look, I have a kasha on you. I have a suffix on what you're saying, the Ramban. You can be very happy that you found something to be done on what I'm talking about. Don't be so happy. Ain't another Cain. Why? because it's clear. I'm not writing anything that's black and white. The Muhammad is not to give you any tiny such a black and white, black and white. Anyone that learns the Talmud knows that there's in the machlekes of the Mefarshim, there's no rayas gemuris. No such thing, rayas gemuris. There's no, with all the kasha you ask, there's nothing that comes out clear. In this chachma of Torah, moifis bar. There's no such thing as a moifis, a clear bar the moifis, just like math. Or anything like that. It's not black and white. He says we're going to put our whole heart and soul in every in Dion and Machlekes, to be marchik any of the days, Bisvaris, Machrius. We'll go according to the Svara. What our Seichel says, that is Imaskach, Besvaris Machrias, we're going to go according to the Besvaris, which are Machriya, through the Besvaris that what we're masig will be machil everything else. The Nasim Yisroel Hechsha Baldina Mipashte Halachas, we're going to give the Yisroel to the Baldin, which is the more Pashtis, Vahogan, Hasugis, Im Haskamas, Haseichel, Hanachin, Vezois Tachas Chaltenu. The only thing which a chacham could do, anyone that's learning could go with his chacham. There's no such thing as black and white. This is not a math, and we have to use our seichel, and we have nothing more than that. The Chazon when he discusses the subject, we should not leave go of our seichel. We have to be miyasid, a big mishkal on the hekesh hasichli. She hamalach ben hayotze v'hayitze. The seichel is the malach between the Hashem and the person, and that's the only option we have to learn the sugyas. So, meaning to say that in order to learn any sugya, we have to use our seichel and our svara. Nothing is black and white. The Rav started the shiur. He's saying that even if it's 70% proven that this is the right chilazon, he would not be mekabelit. He was not going to be gerus. It means nothing to him. It's 70% proof, doesn't mean anything. It has to be 99%. We're being mechaber something new, not because of Safek Deraisa, that tiny which was already all the Achronim disagree with, that we don't have to, some say, Safek Deraisa, we don't have to be machmer. But in this case, which is refuted by all the Gedol Achronim, no, it's not as tiny. We're starting something new. In order to start something new, you have to be 100%, 99%, 70%. We won't be able to. It doesn't mean anything to us. It's unbelievable. What's the difference between 70 and 99%? 70 and 99% is, even if you prove me, misvara, it looks like you're right. Your rayas are bringing a starker rayas. I might have a kasha here, I might have a kasha there. Misvara, the seichel is telling us that you're right. No, but it has to be black and white. That's why along the whole shiur, the Rav was not goyrus anything. That's not. The Rav is only goyrus anything that's black and white. If you could prove me that I'm wrong, black and white, then I'll take it. If not, 70% doesn't mean anything to me. So he'll have a kasha, and I'll answer him with the svara. That's useless. So we won't discuss anything which is Talmud svara. We, Be'ez Hashem, will be discussing black and white Marakomis as I have done until now, and we will go in the Rav's way of being machzik and the Gedolei Achronim in Ani Kunei Rishonim Kamalachim Ani Kunei Adam, and we will be only quote back black and white Marakomis of Gedolei Achronim and Rishonim. Okay, the first question the Rav asked was about Seder. But by the time Seder, we find that the Kosher Mata, the Gemara says in Shabbos the Ayin Daled, in the Mishkan was by Seder, you had to make nets. The Rav said it would be ludicrous to use nets for the snail. But the only problem is that the Metzias is that all generations, in order to catch the Murex trunculus, they use nets. Today's days, they sometimes use nets. They have scuba divers, but they use nets also. Nets was the thing that was used. This is the Metzias, and that's why, however ridiculous it is, that's the Metzias. Next question, the Issa Tzeda. He said there's a world war. If there's tzeda, then malacha and say not kosher matter. It could. There's a trap. If trapping a snail is that over is a tzeda. We know there's halacha. If anything is nitzah to the oimid, something which you don't have to work on trapping, it's right there. It's easy to catch. Is not tzeda. There's no tzeda on that. Tzeda has to come with some halacha. If it doesn't use a malacha, if you don't need a malacha, then it's not also on Shabbos. So he says the Yisroel says there's a Yisroel that says that by a snail there's no tzeda. So how could it be that the Murex trunculus is the chalazin if there's no tzeda by a snail? We know the Gemara says there's tzeda by a snail. This tzeda by chilazin, this proof. He says even though there's a world machlokes, and we're not going to say that the chilazin, the Techeiles is totally if there's tzeda or not. According to this, the Murex is not the chilazin. Now you can't say it can't be totally in such a shaila. Obviously, if the Yisroel held that there's no tzeda by the chilazin, then the Murex trunculus is shorn at it. The shaila if there's a tzeda by a snail is a whole different topic, and the chilazin not Techeiles obviously wasn't a snail. That's what the Rav says. There's a whole world war. The Chroim this way, Rishonim that way. So that there will be one bomb kasha on the Chilaz and Techeiles. But the only problem is that there is no Machama Gedola on if the Chilaz and Techeiles, if there is tzeda by a snail. It's actually many Rishonim are clear. Many Rishonim are clear that there is tzeda by a snail. Many Rishonim are clear that there is tzeda by a worm. There's only one Rishon. He's a Rishon, but it's only one Rishon against at least 10 Rishonim that there's tzeda by such a creature. And just let me quote it. There's one of the Shemona Shratzim is a Chayvit. The Chayvit is one of the Shemona Shratzim, and the Mishnah says Shemona Shratzim. This tzeda by Shemona Shratzim from the Torah. That's what the Mishnah says. Shemona Shratzim mina b'Torah. Hatzadam is chayiv. One of them is the chaymet. What is the chaymet? Rashi writes a few places. The chaymet is a limtza. The Cheskini on the parasha writes the chaymet is a limtza. The Samag writes the chaymet is a limtza. The Rabbi writes the chaymet is a limtza. The Radak writes the limtza. And Rashi Chagiga says, as we said it before, limtza is a snail. There's no question. All these Rishonim, we just mentioned 5 Rishonim, Rashi, Cheskuni, Ravid, Radak, and the Smag, according to them, the Shemona Shratzim, the Chaymet is a snail. And we know from the Mishnahs there is tzeda by a snail, by Shemona Shratzim. Then, there are many Rishonim that say there is tzeda by a worm. Ben Yeruchim, Nesiv Yud Beis, Chelik Yud, Sefer HaNer says it. The Miki Yosef says it. And Rashi, actually, on the Mishnah, Shemona Shratzim Sheshlam, speaks about, over there, Ein Shal Barashi, he speaks about how there is tzeda by a worm. It's a question of the Girsa, but look, the Miki Yosef quotes Rashi Talas. It's clear from the Mefarshim he's supposed to say Talas and Rashi. Rabbi Yeruchim, and Sefer HaNer, and the Miki Yosef all quote Rashi as saying this tzeda by worms. So we have quoted 5 Rishonim, actually, that say this tzeda by a snail, and another 3 Rishonim that say the 5 Rishonim say this tzeda by a snail. Another 3 Rishonim say that there's tzeda by a worm, and we already quoted that many Rishonim that say that the chilazin is a worm. And this is all after all the Achronim and that we quoted earlier. They all say that the chilazin is a snail. We know there's tzeda by chilazin. All these tens of countless mekayros that there's tzeda by a snail. So we have a Tesis Rid that says there isn't. Now, there's 2 reasons why Tesis Rid is not shver. Even if we'll be mesiaches to the machlokes Rishonim as even. We won't go according to the countless mekayros that there's tzeda by a snail. The Svar is mechayiv, and that's what the Gedolei Poskim said, that taking out a snail, catching a snail using tachsisi tzeda, by putting a net in the water, leaving meat in the net, and now the snail has to go into the net, and that's how you pull it out, that would be clearly an act of tzeda, even by something which it will be on the ground, because you need tachsis tzeda, even that. So that itself would make a reason why this tzeda by chilas and Techeiles, and why it's not shaver from the Teisus Rid. And if anyone looks at the lashon of the Teisus Rid, he sees that he says ein zaz ki im ma'at b'yoser. Possibly he's talking about a different type of snail that almost doesn't move at all. But that's a different. We don't have to come on to that. We have all the mekaros that clearly say it's overwhelming majority of Rishonim that say there's a tzeda by a snail, and an overwhelming majority of Rishonim and Achronim that say there's tzeda by worms. And I think that would be suffice for this shaila. And to get into the explanations, I will not get into explanations. Here's Tali and Svara. If you want to look up my Sefer Marakia, we'll discuss it. Another shaila the Rav asks from the Gemara on Shabbos. We know that the Gemara says that we try to get the dye out of the snail while it's alive. If it's not alive, then it's not going to give a good dye. That's what the Gemara says. We want that there should be a good sphere. In order to be a good sphere, we need the dye, the chilazin, to give out a good dye. We need it to be alive. So the Rav said, actually the Metzias is that in today's days, they make the dye from that. This fact is absolutely not true by the Murek. As a matter of fact, the way they get the dye is after it's dead. Unbelievable. The Metzias is, says the Rav, that today's days they take out the dye only after it's dead. And it takes 12 hours. Even in 12 hours, it's still good. The dye is still good 12 hours after it's dead. I have no clue where the Rav got this information from. It is a clear fact, just the opposite. If they work very hard in getting the dye out while it's alive. If they would take it out while it's not alive, it wouldn't be able to use the dye. It would be not good. The second you take the dye out when it's not alive, the quality of the dye deteriorates tremendously. That is absolutely a no-no for the Techeiles industry today's days, to take it out while it's live. I have no clue where the Rav got this fact that they dafka take out the dye after it's dead. It is totally incorrect. Okay. The Rav, this is a very important thing. The Rav quoted that the main riot, this is what the pro-Techeiles people are relying on, that the Kali Ilan and Murek's trunkless are 100% identically in the chemical structure. And we know in Chazal only speak about Kali Ilan and Murek's and the Chilaz and Techeiles. So obviously, if these two things are exactly identical, so this must be the right one. This must be the other choice. This is what the Rav said over. And then the Rav said, he said this over from Dr. Zayderman, who I was able to speak to today. So he has COVID. That's point number one. Point number two is, he said over that Dr. Zayderman actually made a test. There's a Gemara that says that you make a test. There's a way to making a test to prove if what you find in the street is Techeiles, not Techeiles or not. You use different things and you put it together and you let it soak. If it comes off, it's Kal Ilan. If it doesn't come off, it's Murek's trunkless. And he said, Dr. Zayderman made a test, and did it come off? Kal Ilan did it come off? Or I forgot the exact way. He failed. The test failed. So he said, even though Dr. Zayderman holds that this is the right Techeiles, but he proved that it's not. He made a test, and the test from the Gemara failed. So, number one, I was curious, so I got in touch with him. And I called him up. I spoke to him today, and he sent me an email. So this is what he writes about this. No, I have never even attempted to perform those Gemara's tests on any samples at all. I have always, now for the last 50 years, contended that the exact identity of the ingredients, and in particular the amounts required, aren't known, so we cannot duplicate these tests. The salient and crucial significance of these tests for us today is that Techeiles is not indigo tin, meaning to say, first of all, he says he never attempted to make it, and he holds it's not possible to make. So the fact number one is not true. And then fact number two, which is not only that it's not true, it's impossible to be true. Because it's not the same. Not only didn't he make the test, it's not the same. The only creature in the world, the only thing in the world that has, there is something called monobroma indigo, if I'm saying it over correctly, is what the Murex trunculus has. One of the compounds that make up one of the things that make up the dye of the Murex trunculus is monobroma indigo. That's the only creature in the world that has it is the Murex. When the scientists want to identify something is from the Murex, and the old articles that they have found from thousands of years ago, this is the test. It does not have, which the Kallus does not have. So both things are totally inaccurate. First of all, he never made the test. Second of all, they are not 100% identical. There is something which is very different in them, which obviously, if that's the case, then that's not the proof of that the Techeiles, this main proof which the Rav quotes, that is the Techeiles, that why do we hold the Murex trunculus is the Chilas, not Techeiles? The main proof which the Rav understood, that is the proof, is inaccurate, because it's impossible to be accurate, because it's not the same. What is the proof that we have the Chilas, not Techeiles? There are enough Ketresim, anyone can get it, there are many places to get it, look it up. But this is not the proof. I am not coming to discuss what the proof is. You're not trying to prove it. But the idea that the main raya, the Rav understood was impossible to be true, and the idea that he based that they tested it and proved that this is wrong, that's also not true. It reminds me of, I wrote a contrast on our Gaman, and someone put out a contrast against it. And he comes to me, he says, before I put it out, I want you to look over it. So this guy was actually a shliach from someone to show it to me. He wanted to be nice. I should go over to it. It shouldn't be too strong against it. And I said, I'll read it. So I should go over it and to see if I agree to put it out. Very nice of him. So I said, I'll agree one tonight. I'll agree to go over it. If the person that wrote the anti-contrast against my contrast knows what I wrote in my contrast. Because obviously you have to know what you're writing against in order to write against it. So why was I choshesh you didn't know? Because it was more of a kanois. I understood that it was a real kanois, contrast. And I understood if it's coming from kanois, he probably doesn't know what I wrote. And so this person tells me, what's the difference? The person who wrote it against you saw the contrast once 2 years ago, and now he's writing a contrast against it. Meaning to say, by seeing it once 2 years ago, he decided now to write a contrast against it. And he couldn't repeat over what I wrote. He was writing a contrast against my contrast without knowing at all what I wrote. It was unbelievable. 2 years later, obviously I told that person this is totally unacceptable. 2 years later, this person wrote a contrast against me, and then the contrast, everything I brought for proof was a proof against me, obviously. But so I don't understand how the Rav could give a shiur an hour and 50 minutes against the people that are wearing Techeiles without knowing even the main basic rayas of those that hold that this is it. Okay. Then the Rav said there's 17 Rishonim against the Murex. That's not it. And then he said that anyone that and those that disagree with it, those that hold the Techeiles and Techeiles usually agree that the Rishonim disagree with them, and they're a bunch of Chamorim. And sometimes they have the covet for the Rambam to be matchik and things like that. But the Derech Klal, they agree that the Rishonim are against them. So let's see some Rishonim, not going through every raya. Rambam, it's a dog. He says, Yorks is not a dog. We have a Messiris. It's not. We have a Messiris that the Chilazon is a dog, and the Rambam writes it's a dog. Number one, Rishon. A Rishon that disagrees. Rambam, who's going to argue? Miyova Acha HaMelech. The only problem is, which the Rav didn't mention, is that in Masechtas Kelim, the Rambam writes that the Chilazon is a Balchai Yami. He tzadov so Balchai Hayami Hanikr Chilazon. He writes that has a shell. The Mishnah speaks about Chilazon, Oishe Kasha Chilazon, V'Roisha, Shail of the Hills Kelim, whatever it is. What is the Chilazon? We're talking about a shell from a Balchai Hayami, which is called Chilazon. Okay, number one. So the Chilazon has a shell. If Avroma Rambam on the Gemara of Petzei Chilazon b'Shabbos Chayiv writes that Petzei is kepetzias hagoizim, smashing. When the Gemara says Petzei, means like he's smashing a shell of a nut. Egoiz. Obviously, he's also learning that it has a shell, like a snail. And then we spoke about the Rambam. We spoke about the Rabbi Tanchin Shalmi that clearly says that the Chilazon is a snail. So we have a Rambam that says it's a dog, but the only problem is we have a Rambam that says it has a shell. We have a Rambam that learns clearly it's a shell. We have a very Tankin Shalmi that learns it's a snail. So obviously, they understood, and we'll speak about it a little further, that the word dog is not any contradiction to a snail. And actually, if you want to see, you look it up in the Sefer Be'er Moshe from the Debetzina, writes clearly in the Rambam that the Rambam doesn't mean that, and the Sefer Ma'aseh Melech also from the Veitzner Rav also says in the Rambam that dog does not mean dog. Talking some Bal Chayami, like a Choymet, they also say it. So I'm not sure how when we have Rishonim and Achrayim that clearly explain the Rambam, not like it's on its surface meaning, and the Rav didn't say them over. Obviously, according to them, the question doesn't start. The Rav said something unbelievable. The lashon of the Rambam is the Einoi Ke'ein Techeiles. The Rambam says that he goes through the details of the Chilazon, what it is, and one of the things is that Einoi Ke'ein Techeiles. The lashon of the Rav was Einoi is its eyes are blue. Right. The Chilazon's eyes are supposed to be blue. And the Rav Bekitzer said, nothing can be further than the truth. Meaning to say that it's obvious that the Miyuk Shamflis doesn't have a blue eyes. And the Rambam writes, the Einek Ein HaTcheles. Its eyes have to be blue. Now, where the Rav got the meaning of the words, the Einek Ein HaTcheles means the eyes, beyond my understanding, is no question. This is the pashut meaning of the Rambam. Is the Einoi means the coloring. The color of the snail is the color of the Techeiles. Actually, in the Rambam Frankel, the lashon is Einek in Hayam. Obviously, the Rav didn't see the Rambam Frankel because obviously the ocean doesn't have eyes, and the eyes of the ocean are not blue. So it's impossible. The Rav saw the Rambam Frankel, and there's no other explanation how the Rav got to this meaning, meaning that the eyes of the Chilazon is supposed to be blue, and that's a raya brura against the Chilazon Atchela, the Miyureks. Only if the Rav held that the Miyureks Shankles is a joke, and wouldn't have to be medagdik in the rayas that we are bringing. The Rav brought from Rashi that it's a worm. And another place the Rav writes is a dark cotton. So he says, if it's a worm, it can be. A worm is not a snail. And if it's a dark cotton, it's also not a snail. It's unbelievable. So he says we'll find out when Mashiach comes what exactly to do. But right now we have a stira between a worm and a fish. But a snail, it's not. It's not even a question. Pella. Rashi writes in the Avodah Zarah, and Rashi writes in Bechoros that it's Kallus is a snail. So you now have three options. I'm not sure why the Rav didn't have this option. I'm sure, like I said before, the Rav was not given all the information that he would have liked to have. Now, the Etzem Svara that the worm is not a snail, I don't understand. Why isn't a snail is a worm with a shell? Why a slug is not a worm? A snail is a slug with a shell. I don't understand. Actually, there are many achronim when they speak about a chaymet, they refer to a chaymet as a worm. Look I'm just going to tell you the Maram is we'll read one. Teleia the pretoya in your Yeridea Simon Amavav are oischas Teleia the lav minei gavel going to minke the awesome almlik going chaymet cotton. Today we're talking about a certain worm, which is like a chaymet cotton. In the Sefer Rosh Ephraim, for Ephraim's Almagolius, over here said the same thing. The Sefer Beis David over there says the same thing. Prima Godim in Sim Pei Dalad, when the Mechaber speaks about a worm, says it's talking about a snail. Sefer Alichus Olam Nesivus Hara Yeridea Sim Alam Vav says the same thing. Worm's a snail, and the list goes on. I have no koich to say it over. The Ravid says in the Chuvas Tuman Deim. Atol Eshal, I'll share it. Shenimti b'kdera. What's the halacha if you have a kdera, you're cooking, and you find the sherets? Sheminig mitzas mekoymis sheboitkin eset helas. We check the worm. Imichas alav. Is it appropriate what they're noig by the worms to check if it's missing or something? Maybe chaser. If it's missing, we ask the whole kdera. And the writer goes on about this shiloh about the worm. He says, and he goes on with the shiloh. He's calling it a snail, a worm. His sefer Yirei in his Hagdama. He speaks about calls himself a worm, like a shablo, which is a snail. Calls himself and the tashbats in Sefer Mogan Ovis. He says the hikamoy shablo. He's talking about a certain creature which is like a snail. Grows on the rocks of the ocean. And the worm, he's referring to the snail, takes out the worm, goes out of the Narctic from where it is, and he goes on and on. He's speaking about a worm and a snail simultaneously as the same exact thing. Okay, so that's what obviously is disagree. The Achronim and the Rishonim disagree with. Now he asked a stira. So between a worm, is it a fish or is it a worm? The problem is we have the same stira in other Rishonim. We said over from the Rambam. The Rambam says that in one place it's a fish, in another place says it has a shell. He calls it a balchai yami, sheretz yami. The Ravya the Rash. The Ravya in Simon's Kov Tzadik Dalad says the Kallus is a worm, and the Rash the Ravya in Shusat Shabbos Simon Choresh Gimel says that the Kallus is a fish, and the Rash Mishnah Kalim also says the Kallus is a fish. The only problem is that the Rash in Pesachim, Mem Bay says that the Kallus is a fish. Oh, he also says a fish. I'm sorry. And the only problem is that the Rash and the Ravya write that the Kallus is a worm. So, in one place they write the Kallus is a fish, in one place they write the Kallus is a worm. So we have a stira for former Rishonim that they describe: is it a fish or a worm? Is it a fish or a sheretz? So obviously, the Ravid already calls the worm a snail. All these Rishonim had no problem calling a fish, a worm, a snail, all the same name. And there's many rayas that the minig in the Kadmonim would call, the Chazal would call fish, a worm, and a snail with the same name as a fish. And if you want, you can look at my Sefer Marakia, Chelik Beisim and Zayin. I bring down all the Marakaim in this. So, question is invalid. Sorry, I'm fasting. I'm sure everyone else is fasting. So not so clear. Almost finished. Another question Rav asked. The Gemara speaks about a patzei chilazain is shalaf and dash. So he says they bring a raya. The word patzei means to smash the snail, smash the smashing something. So obviously, patzei smashing that means it has a shell. So he says no. Rashi says you push the goof of the worm. You push it. You push the worm, and that's how the word the tzeva comes out. Now, he says, so obviously they didn't learn the Rishonim. So what's the answer? Rav says the answer is that if Rashi would have known what the murex is, then he would know the Petzea doesn't mean Petzea. Petzea means the shell. So they had it wrong. So but Rashi wasn't like K'bnei Adam. So only Kachamarim. We're Chamarim. That is the Rav's way. The Rav puts down this shaila that we're all maskim that Rashi didn't know what the chilazayin is, and Rashi got the Gemara wrong. So there's two things here. Step number one, that we mentioned already, the Ga'onim and Rabbi Avraham and Rambam on this Gemara of Petzei Chilazayin, they both clearly say that the Chilazayin has a shell, and that's the meaning of the Gemara Petzei Chilazayin. So it's not just as far as from Yigalite, it's Gedolei Rishonim, which the Rav obviously wasn't notified about, that learned this Gemara as being a shell. But what's mind-boggling is the Rav mentioned that the Avnei Nezer speaks about this subject, and he also speaks about it being from this Gemara being proof that it's a shell. And this the Rav says, but Rashi disagrees. It's a pella. Because the Avnei Nezer over here in the Tshuva clearly says why Rashi was forced to learn that we're talking about pushing the Petzei is going on the worm and not on the shell. He clearly says Rashi also could have learned that it has a shell. But Rashi was forced, machmas melachas dash, even if you're smashing this shell, if you have to smash something else afterwards, it's not considered dash. Rashi was forced, machmas melachas dash, to say that the Petzei is going on the worm. Not because he didn't have a shell. Rashi agreed that it had a shell. But for different reasons, Rashi has learned the Gemara is going on the worm. So it's unbelievable that when the Rav brings Rashi as a raya and as a reason that we are masking that Rashi didn't know, while the Eglah Tal, the Rav quotes, says that Rashi also agreed that it has a snail, the shell. And he actually gives two reasons for it, and we won't go into it. Okay. Two more points, and that's it. The Rebbeinu Tam, Rav says, the Rebbeinu Tam, the ones that hold the milk is the Chilazayin. Bring a raya for Rebbeinu Tam that holds Dam Mifkat Pocket. The Chilazayin is Dam Mifkat Pocket. The Rebbeinu Tam was Mechadish of Dam Mifkat Pocket. So that's a raya, because the Dam Achilazin is also, we have the murex in Mifka pocket. The only problem is that there are many Rishonim that say different teretz. There's a whole shayla in the Gemara. I'm going to make it kitzer. I'm not going to get into it. And the Tosfos asks a question, and he says Dam Mifka pocket, and other Rishonim say a different answer. Okay, so you have a raya from Rebbeinu Tam, but you have a whole bunch of Rishonim, 7, 8, 9 Rishonim that disagree with Rebbeinu Tam. And obviously, they held that was not Mifka pocket. So they obviously held that the murex is not Techeiles, not Kallus. But what's the answer? If they would have known that Techeiles is the murex, then they would have agreed, and they would have not said what they said. And the Rabbi says he's not going to even say all the names of the Shem that disagree with time, because it's not coveted to say their names in a place where all the ones that are arguing and saying that they made a toast, Mishonim Kamalachim, Chas Hashem to say their names. The only problem is that the Rishonim that disagreed with Rabbeinu Tam is not because they disagreed that the Dam Chalazin is Mifka Pocket. That's not the reason. And it's evident, from, as someone pointed out, from other Rishonim that say Rabbeinu Tam's teretz. Look in the Ritva, look in the other Rishonim. They're on. They say Rabbeinu Tam's teretz and another teretz, and they're not chayzer for Rabbeinu Tam's teretz. We need to say that they held both terutzim are valid. So why did they say another teretz? That's clear. Bnei Yisroel says why they didn't say another teretz. Bnei Yisroel, when he discusses Rabbeinu Tam, he says, "Toisvis hutzruchu lidachik sham the dam chilazim mifket pocket." Toisvis had the matchik the dam mifket pocket. She hiktzas kedivrin revius. He says, how in the world did Rabbeinu Tam know? He's not arguing with it. It's possible, but it's nevius. How from a question you would make a metzius? How are you going to answer Bayis Hilchos Shabbos from a metzius that you don't know? That's what the Pnei Yeshua says. Divrei nevius. And the morale on the says, "V'teretz atois b'shem Rabbeinu Tam tzarichin the dam tzviya mifket pocket v'dobazel le'mitzinim b'shem makom." The same exact thing which Rabbeinu Tam, which Pnei Yeshua says. We don't find this metzius. No one is disagreeing that it's possible such a metzius, but just they felt much more comfortable to say a teretz which would be good, even if the metzius would not be like that. And that is the way the Gedolei Achreim understood it, and this is what they themselves wrote. So there is no raya from all the Rishonim that disagree. There is no raya, and of course, if not mifket pocket, faket, we have a few Rishonim that say it, and that would be another smach, even though it's not so needed. But it's definitely not a raya against from all the Rishonim disagree. And the last raya, the Rav ends off with two Rishonim from the Rabbi and the Ramak. He calls the Ramak a Rishon, that say that the Chilazon is some type of creature which is in between a tree, a tzemach, and a fish. He says the snail is not in between. Obviously, what snail is a snail. It's in between. It's some type of creature in between something that grows and a fish. That's what the Rav says. So we have another two Makaris. The Rav says that are not like the New York trunk list, but if they were known, of course they would have not said, and that's what the Rav says. Number one, there are many Rishonim, the Rabbi, the Rabbi, and others, Rabbi Pana, the Yavitz, and others that say that that Chilazon is this mitzias between a fish and a tzemach. What is this odd creature that's in between growing, something that grows, and a fish? Very odd. So for this, I would say over a Tashbatz. Tashbatz in Magen Avos, page 460 says, he speaks about Achesh in his bar. After it was in his bar, the whole world, the whole world is one thing, from beginning to end, is all mishtal tzasik. He says, you go from the Shorish of the Bria until the smallest thing on this Bria, they're all connected one to another. Ayin Sham is derech how he connects them all. He says, B'tchilas, then he goes on and on, B'tchilas madrega ha-balchai, the first madrega of Balchai is mechuber in the end of the tzmachim. The last tzemach and the first Balchai connect in between. There's some connection between them. And he explains them. Ki yesh Balchaim kiyomim, there are Balchaim that the kayim, they don't move around so like a tzemach v'hem achal zoynos. And he goes on explaining. He goes on explaining this Balchai, which is in between a Balchai and a tzemach. I was going to say his words. It's like a snail. It's in a tube. It grows on the side of the ocean. But which is the worm that would come out of the shell. Half his goof, would go a little bit to the right, to the yamin, smile. Worm comes out of the shell, right and left. And he says when it feels something, when it's going to feel something wet, the dakis to spash the lame, it's going to go on it. And he goes on speaking about this thing. Ve'elo shema, it doesn't have hearing, and can't see, it can't smell, and can't taste. The only thing is, it can only feel. Korav l'teva hatzamach. And he goes on, it's close to the teva from the tzemach. And it grows like it grows like a plant and things like that. He goes on explaining what the connection between a snail and a tzemach is, and a snail and a fish is. And he's clearly explaining Barichis, if anyone wants to understand his philosophy, understanding on the subject, Ayin Sham. But he clearly says that this Ravid and this Rami Pana and this Ralbag and this Yavitz and this, all these Makaris, which say that the chilazon is in between a fish and something that grows, is a snail. All these mekaris would be a raya, another raya that the chilazon is a snail, added to everything we said until now. And with that, I finish. I hope I was clear. I wasn't, obviously because of the tightness, I wasn't, and I'm nervous. This is not my job. I don't do this, but hope that I added some clarification to the subject. Tzlach Rabbi, and we should hear Nechamas, Tzion, and Koltov.
Shkaya. So, excellent. I think it's clarified a lot of things. There's actually been quite a bit of discussion on social media, right? So what I basically did was that I took all the questions and I put them into a few combined questions that hopefully will address whatever everybody's asking, and hopefully you'll be able to answer at least some of them.
Okay, I'm going to try my best. Obviously, after 2 hours talking, my head's spinning, but let's go.
Okay, first question. Why are there still Rabbanim who believe that Techeiles is a nignaz when there's a card rejecting that? I mean, the Chasdei David, according to the results, says that there's 3 types of Techeiles, and the type for the Kohen Gadol was the one that was nignaz. Why isn't this makar more widely believed or accepted? Is it just not well known?
Again, I didn't understand.
No. So there are some Rabbanim that believe that Techeiles is.
Let me say step one. The reason why I believe most Rabbanim say that Techeiles is nignaz is because they were never introduced to all the Mekayres that say that it could come back. That's number one. Is that clarification?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Is that okay, fine.
Oh, because I thought you were bringing something about the Kohen Gadol or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, because you have the Chasdei David that quotes the results saying that there's 3 types of Techeiles, right?
Okay, I didn't hear that. Yeah, but it wouldn't have to come out to that. We have all the places that say that it comes back. It's end of discussion. It's really a avla of all those people that are feeding information and not really saying over, not giving the accurate information. It's a problem. That's why Rabbanim don't want to go into the subject, because they're feeling they're being misled. And actually, the same chashash is by the people that are wearing Techeiles and are convinced they might be misleading them also. And it's very hard to go through it. You have to, in order to do a psak, it takes many months. Many Rabbanim, I personally know Rabbanim that spent in it months and years. And like I said, Rabelski spent in it 20 years. It's a recording. He says he spent in it 20 years. And it's hard. And in Rabbanim, I gave once my countries to a chashuv rav, a very chashuv rav, to go through, and I came to him again a long time later. He says, your sefer still was on for the past few months, was on my table. I'm too busy with shilas of pikuach nefesh. I never got a chance to go through it. So first you have to go through it. Then you have to trust the person. So it's very hard. Some Rabbanim went through it. Most of them didn't go through it. The Matzir says that 95%, I'm being generous, I'm saying 95, it's really more, of Rabbanim that went through it were convinced that this is it, and their whole outlook changed. As you know, Ramesh Steinbach, I have has told my friend clearly that he's chayzer from his shuvas after him sitting down together with him. He was chayzer, and we know afterwards he started wearing it, because he might be a mitzvah. Not that he's convinced, but he was never introduced to it in action. Okay, I think that's enough to say, because there are a lot of things you can't say in public. And the bottom line is that a lot of times there are people that don't let people introduce things to Rabbanim. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So the next question, and this is again, like I said, I combined a whole bunch of things so that it should be in a few condensed questions. The New York Struggles is
It's
organic
fine.
and
You can
very
do. You can make. You don't have to condense it. I'm fine. I'm here for you. I'm perfectly fine.
Scott. The New York Struggles is organic, right? And therefore, without adding sunlight, one can potentially produce a wide range of shades from blue green to blue violet to blue purple, especially when not heated to very high temperatures, right? So, how do we know that the ideal color is dafka blue, like blue, and not bluish purple or bluish violet? Also, how much do we need to get caught up in one specific color?
What was the second part?
Also, like how much do we really need to get caught up in one specific color that this color is tails and the others are not?
So I just remind myself. I told Dr. Zeideman told me I should say something. I forgot to say it. Very important. He was very strong. Two things. He was very strong. You have to talk
Yes.
nicely, not make machlekas. Very strong. We can mechabed each other. That was the very thing he made emphasis again and again in the email and talking. The next thing he said was that does not nothing to do with what he asked. I just reminded myself. I don't want to forget about it. That he said people should not be discussing the chemistry of the chemicals and all these things of the Murex trunculus. People ask how it's made up. It's exactly Kallus, different. If you are not a chemist, don't speak about it. It's just like going to a guy in the street and asking him a pshat and derashba. If you are planning to write some scientific thing, fine, you could speak about it. But if you are not shaykh to the sugya, you're not a chemist, don't talk about the subject. It's not your subject. You're going to be going in a dark room. Leave go of that subject. Okay, it's very important because a lot of people talk about the subject and they have no clue what they're talking about. Keep away. Okay, now back to your question about the color. So the color of Techeiles was actually discussed at length in many svarim. I discuss it at length in my sefer exactly what the color is. Now, it's not a question that the Techeiles is blue. That's not even a question. We have many Rishonim, many proofs that the Techeiles is the color of the sky. The Rambam says of a clear sky, and we know the way that you tie the tzitzis is supposed to be has to do with the color of the sky. So the Techeiles is for sure blue. That's not a question. It's not up for discussion, actually. Even if we would only be able to make purple out of the Murex trunculus, then we would say the Murex trunculus is not the chilazin. But it's not a question from the Rishonim that the Techeiles is blue. Now, could it be purple? Actually, Chazal, we don't find anything about purple. Maybe purple is a part of a blue. It might be part of the blue. Possible, it might be a tzad. In one place, the Shamshav Hirsch seems to put purple and blue together. The Amikurs maybe depends which purple. Maybe it depends on purple and violet. If it's a reddish one, reddish blue wouldn't be kosher. The point is, as long as it's in the blue family, then that would be as far as it should be kosher. But if it's united to any other color, Edom, then it wouldn't be kosher. So Edom is definitely a different color than blue. Is purple a different color than blue? That we could discuss. Not much sources discuss it. I discuss it in my sefer. But that's a discussion. But there's no point in making blue purple because we know it's blue and that's what the chilazon makes. And I'll point out something very important. I once sent it to you, Rabbi. I never got to make it. This is this that the Murex makes purple and is assumed that the main color of the Murex making purple and it also makes blue is a mistake. The main color the Murex makes is blue. As a matter of fact, the purple that comes from the Murex ends up turning blue. So much, though, that there were those that were made purple tzitzis. I'm not sure what they relied on, but they made purple tzitzis, and they ended up turning blue. Dr. Zeideman writes that in order to prove that the Murex makes good purple, we would have to do more research. Even if the Murex makes purple, it is definitely not the main color it produces. There are many Murexes, the younger ones, the older ones, different places that only make blue. The one in Tunis makes only blue. It doesn't even have an optional purple. There's many proof that I wrote about this, but Arichas Gedola, that the color which the Murex produces is blue. And I think that's important information which has to be clarified and correct the big mistake that was made all generations. I'll note that the reason for this mistake was that the word used for the Murex was always purpura, which people associate with the word purple, which is a big mistake. Purple in the earlier writings has no association with the color purple. It's just the dye of the purpura, and anywhere it says purple in the earlier writings, has nothing to do with that color, and you can't prove anything from that. Okay.
Shraga. So next question. Okay, regarding the chilazon, this goes back. We partially answered this with Zeidelman's comments. Regarding the chilazon, what if Thiel was partially right, and their premise was relevant to a geographical location? For example, the New York trunculus snails in Tunisia may consistently produce a different type of blue compared to the ones in Spain, the ones in Italy, etc., etc. You also have,
I'm understanding that we're referring to different shades over here. The question is referring to different shades. Okay.
Yeah, you also have different types of estrogen around the world, depending on where they're grown, and they're shaped differently, the color differently a little bit. So
we have sources saying that different shades is not a problem. The Rajvaz in many different places. I wrote a simon on that in my sefer, that different shades of Techeiles is not ma'akev. It could be any shade as long as it's blue. Again, once you get into something that looks like a different color, then you get into the questions. But if it's dark blue, light blue, shavacha blue, strong blue, all those is all part of different shades. And the Radvaz and others clearly say that shades is not b'chal not a shaila. So if the people question Rashi's mashma, it's dark, and the Rambam mashma, it's light, do what you choose. If that's what you come out with, then what's nicer? Yeah,
I hear what you're saying. Next question, and this is more of a kasha and a maisa, right? So Scheinberg we have from the picture that he only wore one pair of New York Techeiles, and it's possible that he also won with Razin Techeiles, and the rest
he did. He won with Razin.
He wore one New York and one Razin. My question is, why wasn't he consistent with Techeiles if it's a chiyuv and it was not disproven? Like, why didn't he wear all of it blue? Like, maybe half Razin, half New York, whatever the cheshbon is. So
the simple reason is, like I said, that when someone that was very close to me told me that he asked him, should he put on Techeiles? He said, as long as it's disproved, as long as it's not disproved, so you should put it on. Now, meaning to say, Rabbi Scheinberg wore it not because he was convinced. He was worried because, like a good Jew, tries to chaperein as many mitzvahs as possible. So he put on Radzinas. He was not convinced at all. I didn't even know how much he knew about the Murex, the details. But he asked. But he knew those available. So let's put it on. Let's be mekayim the mitzvah as possible. So to do all the tzitzis, he didn't feel was something just because I'm trying to kind the mitzvah that we wouldn't have to do. Just an extra hitter.
I hear. No, just to compare. We also have a letter from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach to Dr. Zeidelman back in the mid '80s that he admitted that he simply did not have the time to do the research, and he was an old man and full of the. So we can't always assume that just because somebody's a high authority figure, that he's gone through the same amount of research that's somebody who's really been articulate in it has.
Yes, you're right. I actually have a whole mimer which I never printed of what all the Gedolim said. Maybe we could give a share another time about it. All what the Gedolim said why they don't wear Techeiles, which nothing has to do with not wearing it. It seems like that, or Rabbanim said over. Like many Rabbanim are saying over that. Even the Gedolim, like Moshe Machakarp says that Yashav told him to put it on, and Yashav told him, the lashon of Yashav told him was that as long as it's not, the oil was not wearing it, she only wearing his talis cotton. So means to say when the oil once the oil started wearing it, he went to Chaim Kanievsky, and Chaim Kanievsky told him now put on your talis gadol. So they felt that Yashav clearly says he doesn't know the details. And like you're saying, they felt that you need to have, like Shmuel Auerbach said, and you need to have more kaiches to go through the sugya. And they, many Rabbanim say like this. I think I heard it from Rabbi Kaplan and others that let's the Olam fight it out. Let them fight it out. Let them fight out the way it's supposed to, obviously the way it's supposed to. And after a bunch of years, we'll be able to see both Stadim, and then we'll be Mavarid. Us, we're busy with Tirdis, Shivas, with the Yonim. We have the most Shiles and Nagunis and Kuch Nefesh coming to us. In order to get authentic psak, let them fight it out, and then we'll address it. So that's why we see that's what's happening now. The Rabbanim are going through it slowly but surely, and that's the way it should be.
Very good. So, and the Shraga with Ray Karp, when did he start to take it on that he's going to wear in his house huddle? And I know that you recently tied for him, so.
Yeah, I actually tied him up here to Talis Gadol. He asked me to tie him for him.
So when did he decide? You know what? It's fine.
No, I don't know the time. Not so. I don't know the times, but that's what he actually asked me to tie. I was able to tie the tzitzis for many Rabbi Gissinger's. He asked me to tie for him Techeiles.
And
other Rabbanim asked me.
Did the Techeiles variation of chinuch with Tosfos?
What did he wear?
Yeah, I'm curious. The Rabbi Gissinger. He wrote Techeiles variation of chinuch with Tosfos ratio, correct?
I don't remember the details. I don't remember the details of how he tied it. He probably let me tie it the way I want to, but I can't. I was able to be in his house a couple of times. He wrote me a skama. To make other Rabbanim also. I dealt with many Rabbanim also. Some Rabbanim don't have the names out, but I was able to make for other Rabbanim also and deal with other Rabbanim that were convinced. Chashav Rabbanim, people ask all the questions to do hadrach and everything.
As it should be. Okay. I have a couple of comments myself on Rabbi Shraga Kallus, so maybe you could answer. As you pointed earlier, Rabbi Shraga Kallus mentioned that Petzia as cracking instead of squeezing is a modern Hebrew term. Like he actually says in the Shiur. And when I saw this, I was like, my head exploded. He also says in Rashi that Chilazon is a Kallus form, right? He ignores that, right, that for example, Rabbi Avraham ben Rambam details that Psias Chilazon is which involves cutting and slashing like one with the walnuts. This is 1,000 years before modern Hebrew, excuse me. So my question then is, my question is, does that mean that he isn't aware of these other Rishonim? Or I'm sorry to say, but was he intentionally hiding something that
there's no question. It's not it's obvious. It's obvious and it's very important. That's why it's very important to share. It's clear as day that he was misled. He did not have the sources. It seems like he had some sources from 30 years ago. It's not even a question that he was not updated. And the people that updated him, I would say the people that updated him didn't give him the right information. I actually know of different Rav. By now already he was Chayzer, but he gave Shiur, not going to get into details, against Techeiles, came out against Techeiles.
Yeah.
I spoke to someone that spoke to him, and he told my friend that he has not read anything pro Techeiles. What he came out against was only from what his Talmidim gave over all the sources about Techeiles Sugya. Meaning to say, he never, whatever he wrote or said against Techeiles was not coming from the idea from what we represent. As since then, he has been Chayzer, but we're not going to get into details. Yeah.
Got it. Right. Kallus also pointed out that Techeiles blood is being Shachar Kidyo, black like ink, which is very explicit and not purple. I also recall from hearing a big part of Mordechai Herschel's Shiur saying the same in another recording, and he compares it to the ideal color of the Resus Tefillin, which is being ink black and not blue or purple. So, do you have any comments on that? Shachar Kidyo.
The Mishnah says that for black in the tefillin you can't use blue, but he says a paligazach for the Retzuis you can use blue for the black. Even though the lachem shesina you have to have shachar, but he says when you need the diyoi color, the halachic criteria for diyoi, that's not the halacha of that. The blue doesn't pass to that. Okay, so the question is basically the question is what do we do with the Rambam shachar kediyoi?
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, if you look at Levush Aaron, again, this is a fair question. It's a very fair question. If you're not satisfied with the answers, look at Levush Aaron. He explains that it gives you pictures of when the Kallus makes fun of it, but I'll talk about it soon. But the the place where the murex is a black vein shach kediyai, and also when it's in the vat, it's black like ink. If you don't like that, kol kavod. But I would say two things. First of all, it's very interesting. I never saw it myself. Maybe I should. That when Aristotle speaks about the murex trunculus and the murex grandaris, one that makes blue and one that makes red, he says that the place where you take out the murex is black, and the place we take out the grandaris is red. He's clearly referring to when he speaks about black, he's clearly referring to this vein of the black vein and the red vein of the trunculus. And that's where the dye comes from. So more than that, it's Yidua. The big question is, when I speak about this Rambam, the big question is, where did the Rambam get it? Where did the Rambam get it? Shach Kedai. Rambam himself is a great source. I trust the Rambam Shach Kedai. But there are Yehuda, I think, and others say, in order to understand what the person is saying, you have to understand the source from where it's coming from. Chol ha-Torah. I'm not a big bucky, Chol Torah, but I can tell you enough people that went through the subject that in Chol Torah, you're not going to find anywhere that the Dam Chilaz in the Shach Kedai. It doesn't exist. Right. So what do people do? So the question is, where did Rambam get it from? Okay, the Rambam had a medrash that got lost. I don't know. I'm not a big mucky Rambam, so I'm not going to. You got to please put down such a basic fact. I don't accept that teretz. So for me, the only teretz would be, I think Rav Herzog pointed out, is that when Aristotle speaks about the murex trunculus, he says in the Arabic version, he says that its ink is black. He says that the dye is black like ink. When he speaks about the murex trunculus, this is what he says. These are the words he uses. He uses the Rambam's words to explain murex trunculus. To me, if there's no makar in the Torah, and we know in Hilchos Kiddush HaChodesh, the Rambam says he uses Aristotle, and we know that you don't have to say that. It's a double pashut. So that would be a raya that the Rambam held the murex is actually the Chilaz and Techeiles. Rather than being a kasha, this would be a raya. But we'll leave that to, if you don't like it, and that's enough proof for you against all the Achrayim, all the Rishonim, and everything that we bring. So don't put it on. Yes.
Very good. Very good. Just a couple of other points. Somebody pointed out. I think all the main questions have been answered. If you have a couple minutes, that would be fantastic.
Please ask me any question you want. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you. The form's open. Everybody is listening. One person suggesting, is it possible that the Chilas and Techeiles might be an orderless, right? Because it's round.
It might be what?
A nautilus.
Nautilus? What's that?
A nautilus. So someone wrote that this person's reason for asking about the nautilus is that it can house both octopi and squid. So sort of like Yosef Koldeus. I've sent an
I just want to point out a point. I just want to point out something. I don't know. I never heard of this creature, so it has to be, again, when we're weighing the Radzina against the murex, it has to be clear. It's not against the murex; it's the Radzina against all the sources which the murex is based on. Right. So all the sources say it's a snail, so then it can't be that. So then obviously it can't be that. I'll actually point out two things. That Radzina held that the murex trunculus is kosher lechatchila for Techeiles shel mitzvah. Radzina held there's absolutely no reason for anyone that's to wear the Radzina Techeiles today, even if he wants to be Yotzel Chaladeus.
Which Radzina Rebbe?
What?
Which Radzina Rebbe said this?
The Radzina, Chanoi Chanach. According to Chanoi Chanach, the murex trunculus is kosher lechatchila for Techeiles shel mitzvah. I see in your eyes that you're a little. What?
How's that possible?
How is that possible? Very simple. Because he says, he clearly, look at his sefer, that any balchai is kosher l'Techeiles shel mitzvah. And l'chatchila. According to Redzina, there is no reason to be Eitzel Chaladeis, because he holds that every Balchai is kosher lechatchila for Techeiles, and there's a very simple reason. Because why do you have to have the chilas not Techeiles? What is the reason? Why can't I use my magic markers? So the only
I was going to say the reason why I chose cuttlefish is he was looking for the simanim according to what he understood the Rambam was saying.
That's so he says what he says. What he says is, yeah, it's true the chilazon is good, and it could be even the grasshopper is good, and whatever it is, the giraffe might be good for the chilazon not Techeiles. But I'm gonna find the one that Chazal had. Liyeser seis means to be mahadrim and mahadrim of Chanukah. I'll be yotze the one that chilazon had, but it's kosher lechatchila. And why? He explains why. Because why do we have to use the chilazon at all? Because he says the reason is Yerushalmi, that you need to be a balchai. The only makar that we need to use the chilazon is it has to be a balchai. So any balchai, as long as it lasts long, gives Techeiles, which is last long. We know the Murex is scientifically strongest, from the strongest creatures, dyes in the world. That would be kosher lechatchila according to Radzina. According to Radzina, there's no reason not to use the Murex. Now, number two, I would say, 1 second, Radzina originally held that the chilazon is a shell, something with a shell. That's what he held lechatchila. He writes this in the Sefer. I thought it was some shell creature, like a whatever, it could be maybe a turtle, but some shell creature. But when I found the cuttlefish, because the Medrash sounds to say it's a cuttlefish, then I really understood what it is. But the most original of the Radzina was that it is something which had a shell in the chilazon, so that's very important to know. Yeah,
that's very, very interesting for a couple of reasons. So first of all, the cuttlefish, we know, it's nartic is in the inside of the.
It's a scientific cuttle. It's a scientific nartic. It's not a. I don't think the Ramban would call that a nartic. It's a scientific nartic.
Exactly.
We spoke about this before. We spoke about the Shiur before the Shiur. We spoke about the Davar Hanila Anayim. It's right. Chazal will never refer to that as a nartic.
Right. Well, right.
Another very important point about the Radzina's Techeiles, a very important point, which my friend Sruli Barkin points out, is that you see from the Radzina, there was something that he did, some reason he didn't want to accept it's a snail. And the reason is that really I have other sources that from Gedolei Achronim that the Murex was, many Achronim quote the Murex as something for the Argaman. Let's not get into it. But the Techeiles Yisroel speaks about the Murex being for the chilazon. He says it doesn't make blue, only makes Argaman. So it can't be it. And the Radzina brings it down. The Radzina actually discusses the Murex trunculus. And he says that's very good that the Techeiles was right that he pushes it away because it's taka doesn't make blue. Meaning to say you do a lot of mistakes. You just know that a lot of people thought the Murex was a clam. It wasn't clear. The Murex for many years wasn't around. And the books over the generations made certain mistakes and details were very blurry. So one of the things was that it makes red. One of the things was that it's a clam. These are all everyone. There's no question. They're all spoken about the Murex trunculus, but they had the details wrong. And the Radzina was very strong with this area, and he knew it's very possible that he seemed to know about this. But it was Yedua for those that for using red. And that's why he was or purple, or whatever. That's why he was very strong against it, because he felt it's against the Messiah, and we have to maskilim. We have to come out against it. Yeah,
it's very fascinating because we'll have of those, right? So you're saying that the Radzina Rebbe felt that any Baal Chai that can actually produce this blue is kosher l'chachila, right? Yeah, so Dr. Zeiman and I have had a few conversations also, and he's pointed out. Now, keep in mind, he's a scientist. He's researched the New York's trunculus for Techeiles for over 50 years. So for it to come from him is very very important to know. His own attitude is that for those that have a tradition to wear the Radzina Techeiles, such as Raziners, Breslevers, those are allowed because he does have a certain level of respect Hasidic thought and the Hasidic process of following the Rebbe, whatever the Rebbe says, right? So he's not against that. His only thing is, though, he's 100% certain that was not the Techeiles has done in antiquity, which, as you're pointing out, seems to be Rabbi Leiner's opinion also, that it's just that the other blues are not done in antiquity like the one that he feels is the correct one. So I'm just finding a very interesting parallel between the two.
Okay. Good. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so let me see if there's anything else. If there's nothing else really. There's a few more purple questions about the oxidized glands, and then that would be violet blue, could be purple. That's finished. But the bottom line is we understand that the main color series is blue and all the blue family. That's the Yekar, correct?
Yes, the blue. That's it.
Exactly. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. I'm sure if if there's anybody that has any more questions, send you an email. The website is techeiles.org, and there's a contact form. Any questions need to be asked can be asked over there, and they'll be addressed shortly.
Great. Thank you, Rafi. Thank you for everyone listening.
Okay, Shraga, have a good one, and everybody have an easy and meaningful fast.
Yes, she was able to build the best in English with Kohen Gadol. With it's very interesting that it's very funny. They all bring their sefri about the nignaz. I think the Olam should know the free nignaz. So we know already that the free nignaz is not a raya because they had it afterwards. But we just sometimes you don't realize the importance. So But Olam's speaking about now the Ramban. The Ramban says that that's a free is talking about Techeiles HaMeisim. I'm just saying it's good for the Olam to know that that's a free is talking about Techeiles HaMeisim, that Techeiles is nignaz until Techeiles HaMeisim. So we hope that Techeiles is going to come back and Meisim Mashiach before Techeiles HaMeisim. We hope the business English should be built. We should have everyone should wear the Techeiles and the kuna. And that's it. That was yourself. Fast.
Okay, so yes, we need Mashiach to come right away. We need the basic pictures. We need everything to fall into place, and hopefully the revival of Techeiles from the past 130 years and the process in us getting to where we are right now is a step in the right direction.
Thank you.
Oh, one last question. I'm gonna let you go. Sorry about that. So somebody's asking about reduction tests. You did mention that Dr. Zayman said that anybody who's a non-scientist should not be asking questions related to science.
Like me, yeah.
Like you, me, and like most of us. So somebody has his own chiddush. It's not only his own chiddush. I mean, I heard this from Dr. Koren, Dr. C. Koren about this. About that the reduction test was supposed to separate the reddish part from the blue. But again, there's textual vagueness in that. There's textual vagueness in the term tzivoni. I'm just laying the question here. There's textual vagueness in the term tzivoni, and there's textual vagueness in terms of samanim and what the role is, and not only that, but throughout Shas there are tons of other tests which have no practical application. Do you want to talk about that and how this resolves this whole thing about the reduction test and whether or not the real test is supposed to be more purplish?
I'm not capable of answering this question. I would love to answer it, but I don't know. I'm not capable.
Not a problem. Listen, I've kept here for quite a long time. It's already almost 2 o'clock. It's already been how many hours already? It's been 2.5 hours. You've been very wonderful with your patients and answering these questions. So Shraga, and hopefully this will, as you mentioned, this will enhance a lot more clarity, and hopefully a lot more clarity in terms of all the other things that we need for the Bais Sushi and Mashiach and all the good stuff. Take care.